Refusing my boyfriend's threesome request led to a wedding drama and a shocking revelation. Am I the asshole? This is a throwaway because too much identifying info is on my main page. IF29 met my boyfriend Michael M35 at a show I performed in. I am a theater person as a hobby, and he complimented my performance and bought me a drink. We have been together now for a little over a year. His sister got married last week and I was initially pleased to be asked to be a bridesmaid but also a bit surprised as she barely knows me, but I thought this was an attempt to have an excuse to also get to know each other better. Michael and I got into an argument the week before because he said that he wanted to entertain the thought of spicing up our sex life and having a threesome. He said since I was bi, why not? I didn't like the idea too much and said so, and it devolved into a petty Cold War and he started to ignore my messages after he left my place. He didn't reply to me at all until the day before the wedding asking what time he needed to pick me up since we can't go separate, otherwise, people will gossip about us. He barely said anything to me the whole time we traveled to the venue. The wedding was fine, but at the reception he got me a plate and leaned in to kiss me, but I shied away and he got up to mingle. I started feeling ill not too long after and 911 was called. I realized I was having an allergic reaction but had my pen but still had to be carted off by the ambulance, and that's when someone who was looking for Michael said that he had left with some of the other groomsmen to a bar nearby. I called 6 times and texted that it was an emergency as I was getting checked out by the paramedics, and again when they strongly suggested I go to the hospital, but he never replied. I was released by the hospital and called him to ask him to pick me up, but he didn't pick up, so I woke up my best friend and she took me home and stayed with me overnight to make sure I was okay. The next morning Michael called me but I was still asleep, so he left me a lengthy voicemail yelling at me that I ruined his sister's wedding and that I always have to make things about me. He came over to further berate me and told me he should just break up with me at this point as I'm dramatic and this is all too much, so I pointed out that he had gotten my plate, knew full well that I have a legit allergy to coconut, and that his sister had told me afterwards that he knew that the cake he gave me was the coconut cream cake as all the food had signs saying what it was and what the ingredients were, as I'm not the only person with allergies that attended. He left telling me that he can't talk to me when I'm this way. I was honestly exhausted, so I didn't bother going after him. But his father called me to ask how I was doing, and after I answered he then told me how I'm hurting Michael's heart by blaming him, and Michael has been inconsolable since we fought. I texted Michael to ask if we could talk, but the conversation went back around somehow to the threesome and how I don't respect him even in intimate settings or want to hear him out regarding his needs and make things about me. I am so confused because to me this feels manipulative, but I respect his father so much. I go to their church and he is a pastor there, so to have him tell me I'm in the wrong threw me. Edit. A lot of comments are suggesting that this was intentional, and I have actually never considered he gave me something I'm allergic to on purpose, and certainly not to use against me to leverage in our argument, but I think I may have to come clean and talk to his parents. I know them well, so hopefully it won't go too badly. Small update. Michael texted me this morning to apologize. He said the wedding was stressing him out and he had a lot on his mind, so he accidentally handed me the plate he meant for himself, not the one for me. He said he didn't know I was in the hospital and felt bad he wasn't there for me, but he left the reception with some of the groomsmen to blow off much needed steam. I don't know how I feel about it all, so I just replied, okay. He is now asking to come over and talk this out in person. Second edit. For any and all of you calling me stupid or implying I am a child and why am I still with this guy, etc. Just know, you remind me a lot of him, of how he used to put me down and bully me, and it's a real wonder of mine if you treat people in your life like he did me. I suspect you do. Glad to be rid of him and indifferent about you. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Be honest, have you, now that you are looking back, seen red flags like this? This behavior likely didn't just show up. Have you ever gotten ill after a disagreement with him? Oddly enough, I am sitting with my BFF and she asked me the same question, and yes, actually. Our first real argument that I can remember, I was down with a stomach bug for almost a week and he visited me and made soup. Then the only big argument I can recall outside this one, he wanted to use labels really soon onto us going on some dates and I didn't, and the next morning, I was sick with chest pains and stomach cramps. I don't want to sound dramatic or accusatory, but since people have commented he might have purposefully given me something I'm allergic to, I just don't know anymore. Comment 2. NTA. The two of you are completely incompatible. He wants threesomes. You want to attend wedding receptions without leaving in an ambulance. Okay. When I read this, I was with Bestie and we've been drinking, and the scream I scrumptious laughing so hard nearly killed me more effectively than the coconut LMAO update 1. Well, many of you were right, I should not have met him in person, but I did. He took me out to lunch insisting he pay for it all, and it was incredibly over the top. He had flowers and a written letter of apology, but as some of you messaged me, his apologies dodged the point by way of "if I hurt you," or "that you're feeling X or Y feeling," etc. He quoted some scriptures and said he has repented as his carelessness caused me harm. I wasn't much moved by any of it until he said how much his family loves me and how much our church roots for us as a couple, and I kinda sat back and realized that one flimsy reason I was even entertaining forgiving him and staying was because of the pressure I dealt with as the GF of a pastor's son. It occurred to me that there were so many times I let things slide because he is the heir apparent, so he had the power in the social aspect of our community. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but I'm emotional and tipsy. I remember just staring at him and saying it was incredibly alarming that by now he can't be aware of my one-ingle allergy, and that he didn't bother to tell his own GF he was stepping out with the guys, or even that he was stepping out of his own sister's wedding at all. He then said it was really actually kind of stupid of me to eat a cake that had coconut, and implied I'm an idiot for not realizing what I had was coconut. I realized then he would never accept that he was in the wrong, and thus there was no point. I stood up and smiled and said, "You know what, don't worry about it. Thanks for dinner. Good night." To which he replied that if I wasn't going to grow up and accept his apology, I'm a waste of his time. He uses that a lot whenever we disagree, and it usually hurts me deeply, but this time it was like a Rolodex of memories flooded my brain, and I really suspect he's been deliberately making me sick whenever we disagree to teach me a lesson. I said I was done and he needn't waste his time with me from this point on, and left. I then sent screenshots to his father explaining the situation as best I can without blaming Michael for prior illnesses without proof, and I got a text about 20 minutes ago from his father. His father is incredibly disappointed in my immaturity and hurt that I wouldn't even give it until Sunday at church where we can pray together, talk it out and heal. I felt this way for a while, but I was able to say at this time that using religion as a tool of guilt is low, and I am no longer concerned with his version of God, as that version is a judgmental, cruel, and heartless jerk, while the one I always thought of was loving, compassionate and kind, and I am done. I was told by him and by further emails that I am no longer welcome at my church until I reconcile with my true husband and learn compassion and respect for my leaders. So I guess that's it. I will enjoy sleeping in tomorrow and eating coconut-free food, while lazing about my home rather than going to 3 separate church services starting at 8 a.m. and then figure it all out from there. I don't know how to sign off, but I do watch a concerning amount of Charlotte Dobry videos, and she usually ends things with practical shit like, do your laundry or something. So I will just say, live for yourself, feed your soul, and know you're enough. I certainly am going to put in the work to get there, and I hope we all make it to the other side, content and filled with love and joy. And by the way, F you, Michael. I know you are reading this. I know you know it's me, and I hope your socks are always just a little soggy. OP added in the comments. Here I forgot to add to my post, but I didn't want to bring the threesome requests into it. Well, I sent his daddy screenshots of some texts. If you'd like some drama, here are the top 2. It was the night I sent him home after he tried and failed to pressure me into sex. He told me that I was missing out and should be grateful since, your body makes me sick, but my love for you is stronger. Would it kill you to be grateful enough to just do a HJ? And on his birthday, I had just been in the hospital after passing out from exhaustion and dehydration and went straight to his party. I stayed at his place until everyone left, and I left soon after helping clean all but the kitchen, and he sent, you could have cleaned the kitchen then or stayed over for sex. Then you're a waste of time if I don't even get birthday sex, thanks a lot. And after both B suggested adding a third. His dad hasn't responded. Relevant comments. Comment 1, holy crap, and you stayed with him? You poor girl, no one deserves someone like that in their life, but you didn't say if you told his dad about him sending you to the hospital and potentially killing you. Because we both know, and the rest of Reddit knows, that he did that intentionally. And if there was proof of him giving you that cake, you could probably send his happy ass to jail. OP, I didn't and don't have the best self-esteem. And here is the only black woman in the town that I've known of. I've always known that I'm considered less desirable. Not saying that's right, but just knowing where I live. Been here since my preteen years. When Michael asked me out, it was like a parade. Everyone acted like it was a Cinderella story and I won a lottery or something. I have a friend who I have been texting today, and she is letting me know how dumb I've been. I never told her of our issues, and is about ready to commit crimes. LOL. I think I lost myself for a bit, but I wanted to leave the church low key for a while because of my treatment, so that helps a bit. Update 2. It has been a hot minute. I forgot about my posts until I was watching a YouTube video on Reddit stories, and the story reminded me that I never did update. I found a church in my city a bit more laid back, like we can go to the pub after and have a laid back laugh. I did like it and made amazing friends I am still in touch with, but the going to church idea came from my therapist, and it was to see if I do identify with the church or the ideals of it, and I don't. So now I am back to being the heathen I am. LOL. My ex quickly moved on and he had a new GF within a month of us breaking us. Bless that woman, I thought, because isn't she in for a ride? Oddly enough, she reached out to me on my Facebook and I was curious and opened it. She started with who she is, how long she and ex have been dating and how long they knew each other, childhood friends, so basically forever. She then said that she feels convicted by the Holy Ghost to seek a resolution between me and ex, and she is worried I may be his true wife. And if I cannot forgive, then I am proving I am not, and to let her know as she cannot marry him until I make this clear. I shit you not. Seeing the screenshots, the chat with my new church buddies, my friends sent vomiting emojis, and that this is a cult and not a faith. I concluded they were right and replied with, yeah, marry him if that's what you want. And nothing more. I am getting messages from members of the church, but I don't much care. I've loved my life since leaving. I didn't know life could be so enjoyed really, and it makes me wonder how much damage the church had on me. But for now, just for fun, I am going to an appointment with a friend of a friend's apprentice on tarot readings. LOL. No, that's true. I was asked. No offense to anyone who believes in it, it's just not normally my thing, so I'm curious and interested. Maybe it will be good. I will know. Now to the next story. Story 2. Am I the asshole for flipping out on my fiancé for canceling all the vegan food options from our wedding menu behind my back? My fiancé, 31 male, and I, 25 female, are getting married soon. There wasn't much that disagreed on during the wedding planning except for food. Me and my family are vegans, and there are so many reasons why we chose this lifestyle, and one of them being that we have a history of health issues. My fiancé and his family are the complete opposite. They're hardcore meat eaters, which is fine by me obviously. However, when deciding on the wedding food menu, I wanted to add 5 vegan options. My fiancé and his mom objected, saying it was a waste of money over food that isn't real food. They also argued that this would be offensive for their guests and suggested my vegan options just be the good old salads and appetizers. His mom wanted cupcakes. LOL. I said no because for one, it's me and my family who's paying. And two, I want to make my guests feel welcome and not be treated as second-class citizens by being served salad. My fiancé made a face and said, "Isn't that what vegans eat?" I refused to argue about it and said it was final. The other day, I found out that he had canceled all the vegan options and took them off the menu completely and behind my back. I was seething. I called him at work, but he kept hanging up on me. I went straight to his workplace and confronted him there and just flipped out on him. He was stunned to see me. He at first said it was his mom's idea, then told me to go home because I was making a scene at the office. The fight continued at home and he defended himself by saying that I sort of made him resort to doing this after I kept brushing off his thoughts and input and refusing to accommodate his family. But there were plenty of meat options. Why can't I get 5 vegan options when I'm paying for it? He yelled that it was his wedding too, not my family's. My family said it was fine and they'll figure it out and told me to let it go, but I refused. AITA for putting my foot down on this. Verdict, not the asshole. Update 1. So his mom messaged me earlier to try to get me to listen to what she had to say after I kept ignoring her phone calls. She spent long walls of text just to address what I did at her son's workplace, calling it all kinds of stuff from immature to unhinged. She then went on to explain how she's noticed that me and my family kept acting dismissive of her son's input and contributions to the wedding. She said that she noticed my behavior towards him and her entire family and wanted to speak up earlier but didn't and tried to keep the peace. She then went on to address the food menu issue and denied her involvement in the cancellation of the vegan option, but that didn't mean she doesn't support her son's decision. Moreover, she thought it was so irresponsible of him to make that move because of my continual refusal to see how this stuff is a waste of money. She also pointed out how I kept saying I paid for it, and said that technically this isn't just my money, it's mine and his because we're getting married. She suggested I wake up and get rid of my money, I paid for it, mentality. She finally mentioned how bad this whole situation is making me look and said that she and her son had already offered a number of compromises that I chose to brush off and decided to make it my weird hill to die on. She said that not only her son is upset but she and the family are as well after hearing about it, and suggested I just agree on their compromise and be done with it. This pissed me off beyond belief. I responded by letting her know that I'm still standing my ground on this even if I'll have to call the whole wedding off because of it, because honestly, this is just ridiculous. It is. My mom and dad, they don't even know what to say anymore. Apparently, my fiancé saw my response to her, he's with her, and is now trying to call me, but right now I'm waiting on him to get home and see if he's still insisting on the stance he took. I'll update if there's anything worth adding after we talk. Relevant comments. Comment 1, NTA, are you sure you want to marry this man and his family? They have no respect at all for you and yours. OP, frankly, I have no idea why his mom feels so strongly about getting involved. I only included in wedding planning only because I respect her, but I guess it's like they say, give an inch, and they'll take a mile. Comment 2, info, how many options are there in total? So like 4, 5 non-vegan and 4, 5 vegan, meaning 8, 10 options for meals. Is this a buffet or restaurant reception? Or is this a multi-course menu and so there is essentially one vegan meal with 4, 5 courses? NTA, because he did this behind your back without talking to you. But I'm wondering why he cares what other people eat. Also, he's the AH for claiming he doesn't know what vegans eat. You're vegan. He knows you eat more than salad. OP, aside from the vegan we have 6 options with meat. His mom picked one. I'm paying for the whole thing. Comment 3, if you marry him, this is the rest of your life. He'll do whatever his mom says when it comes to your kids and managing your life. Update 2, so the talk didn't go well. I waited for him to come home so we could have a final conversation about it, but he still insisted on his stance. For more details, his family are a bit on the heavy side. Nothing wrong with that, they're perfectly within their right to decide how to live, but they get easily offended at the mention of the words weight and food. I tried so hard to focus on the issue at hand, but I noticed there was a pattern of this behavior. He said it wasn't true. And that this was just an attempt for me to throw past conflicts at him in order to win the current one. He claimed he tried to reason with me about why and how his guests might see those vegan options as offensive, also said that his family love food and consider it a big deal, and how he didn't want his family to feel like there's certain options that they couldn't touch, and feel that there's difference in how I treat them versus how I treat my family. He then went on to explain how it's just an event and how my family should just accept what's on the menu, and if they felt inconvenienced, so what? It's just a one-time thing. They're not gonna die if they had salad and appetizers. What he said wasn't a good enough reason for me cause his folks are gonna think and say what they want, but at the end of the day it's my wedding. And to be honest, realizing that my partner himself thinks it's okay to steamroll my opinions and decisions simply because he's prioritizing others and their opinions over me was really upsetting and not something that could be looked past. Normally, I'm a person of rational discussions and compromises. I'm all about compromises. I'd compromised on much bigger matters than just food, but like people said ... it quote s not about the food anymore. If it ever was. Like, he'd literally lose nothing if he let me have what I wanted, but apparently, he was willing to lose it all over this, which is fine by me. I gave him back the ring and called everything off. I just couldn't envision myself living like this any longer, having to walk on eggshells for his family and letting him basically override my opinions and have the final say no matter what. Marriage is about compromise, and here he has nothing to lose yet chose to do this to me and my family. Mind you, this is my first serious relationship and I didn't know what to expect, but it's safe to say that he and his mom and family did make it feel like I was taking crazy pills on many occasions, so that's that. Last thing he said was that I chose my family over him and ended everything for the sake of keeping him happy. Decision has been made and it's done. Just wanted to give an update to those who wanted it. Thank you so much for your endless stream of advice and support. Relevant comments. Comment 1, good for you. Marriage is about compromise, and it doesn't sound like your ex is interested in compromising, or even letting you have a say in things. That isn't a partnership. OP. Thank you. And you're right. Honestly. I felt kind of hesitant about posting an update. In fact, I was hesitant about posting my situation as a whole. Normally I'm not the time to share my private business online, but I was desperate. Like I said, there were times where his family made me feel like I was taking crazy pills. Honestly, and I'm gonna say this anyway, I hate them. They always made me feel like an outsider and a stranger. Never really warmed up to me and instead pretended to like me, but it was obvious they resented me. They claim that I'm a covert fat phobic, but in reality, I got mocked, along with my family, for being underweight due to health issues I'd mentioned before. Don't even get me started on future Mill, though I feel as though I gotta let it all out and vent. Comment 2, you go girl. Dude 100% laid out a roadmap where only his opinion matters and yours is irrelevant. This probably wasn't the first time, but it for sure would not be the last. OP. Exactly. Like I said, I'd noticed a pattern of this behavior but kept rationalizing it, which was a huge mistake on my part. It's been utter torture trying to please him and his family. I'm an emotional mess right now, but there's this little voice of reassurance telling me I've gone through the worst and survived it. I'm so thankful this happened. It helped me see things clearer. Stepdad's birthday gift turned nightmare, hidden camera found in clock. The shocking truth about who really planted it. For my 18th birthday, my stepdad gifted me a clock. When I discovered a hidden camera inside, I fled, suspecting him, but later found out the new assistant was responsible for spying on me. I'm 18 and live with my mom and stepdad Joshua. My mom married Josh 6 months ago after a rough divorce with my dad, who had an affair. It was a messy situation, and now neither my mom nor I have any contact with him. Josh has been a family friend for as long as I can remember. I never suspected he had feelings for my mom, and I don't think anything happened between them before the divorce. Growing up, I called him Uncle Josh and spent time at his dental practice, so it was a bit of an adjustment seeing him as a father figure. But I always liked him. And he makes my mom happy, so I went with it. Yesterday was my birthday, and I usually don't make a big deal out of it. I went to school, then hung out with friends. It was a nice day. When I got home, I was surprised to find out my mom and Josh had planned a surprise party for me. This was quite a shock because my mom is usually terrible at keeping secrets. I walked in to find my mom, Josh, Aunt Kathy and my little cousins ready to surprise me. It was actually quite nice. We celebrated with cake and my favorite foods, and everyone seemed happy. Then came the time for presents, which is where things took a turn. I opened gifts from my cousins and Aunt Kathy first. Then my mom and Josh gave me concert tickets to one of my favorite bands. I was thrilled because I had been saving up for ages to buy a ticket with my part-time diner job. It felt like the best birthday gift ever. After my aunt and cousins left, I went to my room to tell my best friend about the tickets. I was in bed chatting with her when Josh knocked on my door, saying he had one more present for me. I was already so happy with the tickets that I couldn't imagine anything better. Josh brought out a huge box and I tore into the wrapping. Inside was a pink wall clock with little strawberry decals. It was cute but seemed underwhelming compared to the concert tickets. Nevertheless, I was grateful and placed it on my study table. Josh asked if I liked it and I said yes. He was really happy and mentioned that the concert tickets were my mom's idea, but he wanted to get me something special on his own. My room is decorated in pink with lots of strawberry-themed items, so the clock fit perfectly. I appreciated the thought and thanked him again for being so considerate. He wished me a happy birthday once more and left. Feeling sleepy, I told Amy I was going to bed and would talk to her the next day. She had been on the call and heard Josh come in, asking what he got me. When I told her it was a clock, she insisted I show it to her. I promised to send a picture the next morning, but she was persistent, so I agreed to take a picture and send it right then, even though I didn't want to get out of bed. So she would have to settle for a terrible dark picture with my flash on. My study table is right beside my bed, so when I'm lying down, I can just barely reach it. Feeling extremely lazy, I decided to stretch out and snap the picture from bed. That's when I noticed something really odd. My room was pitch dark. I don't have any night lights or fairy lights because I need complete darkness to sleep. I grabbed my phone, opened the camera, turned on the flash, and aimed it at the clock. That's when I saw it. A small bluish light on the clock. The time flashed in a soft pink, but there was a noticeable blue light. I found it strange but didn't think much of it. I took the picture, sent it to Amy and tried to sleep. I was almost asleep when I remembered something from a movie or TV show and instantly sat up. I glanced at the clock again, did a quick search on Google, and attempted to take another picture, this time with my front camera. Guess what? The same blue light confirmed it. There was a hidden camera in that clock. In case you didn't know, you can detect hidden cameras using the front cameras on most phones, and sometimes even the back camera. I'm not sure exactly where I learned this, but I'm a huge fan of crime documentaries, so maybe I picked it up from a show or something. I was convinced there was a camera in that clock, and it was recording me. I felt a knot in my stomach. I didn't know what was going on. Why would Josh give me something like that? Someone might have been watching me right then and there. That thought snapped me out of my shock. I got up, threw the clock in the trash, and when I returned to bed I was trembling and confused. I didn't understand what was happening. It all seemed surreal. I didn't know what to do, so I called Amy and woke her up. I explained what happened and she was just as freaked out as I was. We stayed on the call for a while and she suggested I call the cops because clearly, Josh was some sort of creep, and who knows where else he might have hidden cameras. The thought made my stomach churn. I considered going straight to my mom and Josh to tell them what happened, but I was so confused and scared at that moment it almost felt like a nightmare. Amy and I ventured online to locate a particular clock on a dubious website. After some thorough searching, we finally found it. The site was filled with eerie surveillance gadgets and similar items. The most unsettling part was spotting stuffed animals there, which made me even more uneasy since I own many stuffed animals, some gifted by my mom and Josh over the years. It made me wonder if any of them could have hidden cameras. I began feeling like everything in my room was watching me. It was one of the most distressing experiences I've had. Unsure of what else to do, I gathered all the stuffed animals that I hadn't bought myself, along with the clock, stuffed them into a trash bag and got rid of them. Feeling physically ill, I decided to just sleep it off and handle it in the morning. I took some melatonin, played some white noise, and tried to sleep. I don't remember when I fell asleep, but I know it wasn't much. My mom woke me up, shouting my name. Disoriented, it took me a moment to understand that she was yelling about the wall clock. She said Josh found it while taking out the trash that morning and was deeply hurt by my actions. I took a deep breath and told her to give me a moment so I could explain everything, confident that she would understand why I was relieved to have thrown it away. She called me an ungrateful brat, saying I wasn't worth the effort they put into making my birthday special, and demanded that I apologize to Joshua immediately. Before I get into what happened next, keep in mind it was very early in the morning, just before 7 a.m. I had a rough night and barely slept. My mom's agitation put me in a bad mood too. So when she told me to apologize, I snapped back that Josh was lucky I wasn't reporting him to the police for being a massive creep. My mom lost it and slapped me. I was shocked. In 18 years, she had never raised a hand to me, and now she did it over a man. I was offended and deeply hurt. The full reality of the situation hit me and I started to cry. My mom thought I was crying because of the slap, but it was more than that. I was overwhelmed and needed her support, but she only made things worse. She saw me crying and said there was no point in it, that I should have thought before acting like a brat and throwing away a thoughtful gift. That was the last straw. I got really angry and yelled that she should think twice before defending her husband. She got even angrier and warned me to be careful about what I said next. I had enough. I got out of bed, grabbed my phone and car keys, and asked her if she knew where Josh got the clock from. She thought I was implying it was a cheap gift, which wasn't the point at all. As she started to say something else, I told her I'd had enough and didn't want to hear it. I pushed past her, ran to my car and drove away. She followed me to the driveway and tried to stop me, but I was quick enough to get away. I drove to a nearby diner and sat there for a while, trying to figure out my next move. Knowing I couldn't go home, I called Amy and she told me to come over to her place. That's where I've been since the afternoon. Amy and I decided to confront my mom and tell her the truth, so we sent her screenshots of the creepy site where the clock was listed. I sent them to her and waited. About an hour later, I started getting calls and texts from both her and Josh. I didn't want to talk to either of them, so I ignored the calls, but the texts were all apologies. They both said they were ashamed of how they acted and should have given me a chance to talk instead of lashing out. They offered to explain if I gave them a chance, but I honestly didn't care. I couldn't see how this could be explained or made okay, and I definitely didn't want to go back home. I texted my mom, telling her to stop trying to reach me because I wasn't interested in hearing her out. She replied with a long message saying that Josh was innocent and would never do anything like that. Apparently, the wall clock was bought by his assistant Peter. Josh did want to get me something for my birthday without mom's help but didn't care enough to pick something out himself, so he asked Peter. Peter is a new guy working for Josh for the last few months. Josh hired him fresh out of college, so he's not much older than me. Since Josh's practice is nearby, he sometimes sends Peter to run errands like getting his lunch, and he has even come to dinner, so I've met him a few times. He always seemed kind of creepy to me, so it wasn't a big surprise that he would try something like this. He never even tried to talk to me directly, and I had no reason to believe he was capable of doing something like that. My mom's text said they wanted to call the cops on Peter but wouldn't do it without my permission. She also said she would leave Josh because he put me in this spot with his carelessness. That shocked me because I know my mom really loves Josh, so it must have been hard for her to say that. This finally made me call her. My mom sounded devastated. She had no idea about the camera and felt incredibly guilty for not believing me earlier. She kept sobbing and apologized a million times, saying she was sorry for everything, especially for slapping me and not listening when I needed her most. She said she just wanted me to come back home so she could apologize in person and make things right between us. I told her I still wasn't ready to see her but asked if she was sure it was Peter and not Josh who bought the clock. She said she trusts Josh. I told her I was still not comfortable living in the same house as him and she said I was more important to her, and if I wanted to, she would get separated from Josh. I told her I needed time to think. Also, I got a million missed calls from Josh, but I didn't pick up any of them. He texted me many times, saying he can prove that Peter bought the clock and that he had no idea it had a camera. He also said my mom wasn't speaking to him and begged me to hear him out. He said he loved my mom and me as a daughter and would never do anything to hurt us. So that's what my day has been like. Amy has been my rock and said I can stay with her as long as I need. It's just her and her grandma at their house, and I know her grandma well, so I'm sure she won't mind me staying until I figure out my next move. My mom has even tried to reach Amy, but she didn't pick up. It's not hard to figure out where I would go in a situation like this, but I hope she doesn't actually show up at her door. I feel really guilty and conflicted. I think maybe I should hear him out and see if he actually has proof, but at the same time, I feel scared and unsafe at the thought of seeing him. I don't want to destroy my mom's marriage over a misunderstanding, but I'm wondering if I'm doing something wrong here. Amy says I should do what feels right to me, but I'm not sure at all. Update 1. I did not expect to become Reddit famous overnight. The response to my post has been overwhelming, with so many questions and comments that I haven't even had a chance to read through them all. But I have some major updates to share first. The morning after my post, my mom and Josh showed up at Amy's place. I wasn't surprised. I told my mom I didn't want to see Josh and that they should leave, but she begged me to hear her out. She was very emotional, clearly having been crying, and even Josh looked rough. Feeling bad for them, I decided to hear them out once. First, let me clarify that Josh was not lying about Peter picking out the gift. He showed me text between them. Although there was no direct text about finding a gift, there were messages from Peter saying he found the perfect item and a picture of the clock. It looked like an ordinary clock. Just like when I first got it. Josh had told him to order it and send the invoice to the office. The conversation was basic and nothing seemed suspicious. Reflecting on my interactions with Peter, nothing major stood out. He had just been a little creepy, like catching him looking at me, but I never thought much of it. I told Mom and Josh about this, and they were furious. Josh kept apologizing, saying he failed me and put me in danger and that he would never forgive himself. By then, I knew it wasn't his fault and I wasn't angry at him anymore. I agreed to go back home with them. I can't believe I almost ruined their marriage over this. It's gross to think that some random creep was trying to spy on me, and the thought of him seeing me gives me chills. This whole situation is a nightmare. We decided to go to the police. We have enough proof to ensure Josh isn't caught up in the investigation, and he's willing to do anything to get me justice. We're going to the police tomorrow morning. The clock is still in the trash because we don't want to alert Peter if he's still watching. I'm nervous, but at least I have support. I hope they catch him and teach him a lesson. I'll try to post an update. Some of you suggested not trusting Josh, thinking he might be in on it with Peter and now trying to shift the blame. I understand your concerns, but I trust him. Peter has been a creep for as long as I've known him. Even if Josh were capable of such a thing, why would he involve Peter, someone he's only worked with for a few months? I checked the texts on Josh's phone and the timing between messages. It didn't look like any were deleted, and Josh showed me the transfer of money to Peter's account for the clock. He had no way of knowing where the clock was bought from. All of this makes me feel like I can trust Josh. I'd rather give him the benefit of the doubt over Peter. Sure, Josh should have been more careful and picked out the gift himself, but that doesn't make him a criminal. Peter wouldn't take the fall for Josh because there's enough proof to get him in trouble. If Josh was involved, the investigation will reveal the truth. Regarding how Peter knew I would like that kind of clock, Josh mentioned that he told Peter to look for something pink and preferably with strawberries. It's not a hard guess for anyone who knows me. I love pink and have a lot of strawberry-themed things. It's just part of my personality. But instead of focusing on that, we should be more concerned that these products even exist. Many of you have asked me to name the site where the clock was bought, but I don't want to cause trouble. However, you can easily find it if you search for hidden cam clocks online. Amy and I found it pretty quickly that night. Update 2. We called the cops on Peter and he got arrested. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support on my previous post. After reading your comments and discussing it with my mom and Josh, I realized I couldn't just let this go. I felt shaken and scared, but I knew I needed to act to protect myself and possibly others. I talked with Amy and realized he might be doing this to other girls. Maybe even minors, which made me more determined to stop him. After having breakfast and gathering my thoughts, I decided to call the police. My mom and Josh stayed with me for emotional support. I explained everything to the dispatcher, the hidden camera, the suspicious clock, and my confrontation with my mom. They took it seriously and sent 2 officers to our house to take my statement. The officer was very understanding and professional. I was nervous about how it would go, but the officer just asked me to describe the clock in detail and any other suspicious items. He asked about my interactions with Peter, and I told him everything I could remember, though there wasn't much. I also mentioned the website where Amy and I found similar spy devices. The officer assured me they would investigate thoroughly. We shared the text exchanges between Josh and Peter, showing that Josh asked Peter to pick out the gift. The officer said they needed Josh to go with them for questioning. Josh agreed immediately, reassuring us that there was no need to worry and that he would be back soon. After taking my statement, the officer asked if I felt safe staying at home and if I had any friends or family I could stay with. I told him I trusted my mom and Josh and felt all right. He told me to contact them if I felt unsafe. They also needed to search our house for other possible hidden cameras or suspicious items. The police conducted a thorough search, particularly in my room, but found nothing besides the clock and some stuffed animals I had thrown away. Peter claimed that none of the other items were bought by him, and my mom confirmed that most were bought by her. The police went through them but found nothing suspicious. They didn't find anything else in the house, which visibly relieved my mom when the police confirmed there were no other objects of concern. Josh left with the cops and came back after a few hours. When I asked what happened, he said it was all routine. They asked if he wanted a lawyer, which he declined, and mentioned he might be called in again. The cops also wanted my mom to come in for standard questioning the next day and needed me to come in too for paperwork and other details. Peter was arrested at his home and is now under investigation for invasion of privacy and related crimes. I don't know much about the ongoing investigation, but I hope he confesses or they gather enough evidence to convict him and prove Josh wasn't involved. It has been an exhausting day, and I just want all of this to be over soon. My mom and Josh have been very supportive, giving me space to process everything. We've also hired a lawyer, whom I'll meet tomorrow. I'll try to provide an update, but it might take a while as I need time to process everything and wait for more definite developments. Update 3, it has been 4 months since my last update. I've been really busy, so I apologize for the delay. First, Peter was found guilty, and we pressed charges against him. He didn't put up a fight and admitted to buying the camera clock without Josh's knowledge to spy on me. The only silver lining is that we found no evidence of him doing anything similar in the past. Since I was a minor when Peter first started working for Josh, he didn't bother to delete his search history. The police found the site with surveillance devices on his computer. More disturbingly, they also discovered that he followed me on almost all my social media using fake IDs. I had no idea about this, and it really creeped me out. He admitted that he had a crush on me when he first saw me, which is extremely creepy because he was an adult, and I was only 17 at the time. The police didn't find any evidence of him doing anything except following me on social media while I was still a minor. He said he knew he couldn't approach me directly, so when Josh asked him to pick out a present, he came up with this disgusting plan. I don't even want to think about what would have happened if I had not noticed the camera that night. Since he had no prior convictions or criminal charges against him, this was considered a misdemeanor rather than a felony. Despite our efforts to charge him with a felony, he only spent a few days in jail before being bailed out. I am quite disappointed with how things turned out, but at least his actions are permanently on his record. That's all I can tell myself. Over the past few months I've been focusing on school and getting into college. I am also going to therapy to deal with the trauma of what happened. I am grateful to have my mom, Amy, and Josh supporting me through all of this. Am I the asshole for telling my friend, who is vegan and doesn't drink, that I'm tired of catering to her choices? My 50F friend Lauren, 46F, is a vegan who doesn't drink. That's awesome and I have no issue with that. The problem is that she is part of a small group of friends who don't get out very often, but when we do it always has to be limited due to Lauren's choices. We live in an area where our food choices suck to begin with, so having to go to eat where she can be satisfied is very limited. There really isn't much to do otherwise at night. In addition, she gets upset when any one of us eats something that has an obvious meat to it. For example, she doesn't say anything if we get a soup with chicken or something, but if we ordered a hamburger she would cause drama. Then she doesn't drink, which is no big deal, but she will then send us videos on the harmful effects of alcohol if we get a drink or two with dinner. It has gotten on my nerves to say the least. It's been a while now, so I am done with everyone catering to her needs. I have tried inviting everyone to specific places and invited Lauren as well. Then she puts into a group chat, "Hey ladies, since I can't eat at X, why don't we go to Y?" Then of course the other ones decide we should go to Y instead. I have backed off of going out because I don't want to spend money on food that sucks. Remember, it's vegan, not vegetarian, so it's very limiting. And is expensive, or have my intelligence questioned by sending shit about the effects of alcohol as if we are not beyond old enough to know or Google it. I barely drink anyway but enjoy a glass or two every so often. She asked why I keep bailing, so I told her I respect your choices but by the very nature of them they have limited mine. Being that I don't have the ability to go out often nor unlimited funds, I am only going to go when I know the entire experience will be what I want. So if I'm in the mood for a steak and a vodka tonic, I want to have them in a relaxed atmosphere, and that obviously bugs you. If I'm in the mood for a salad and water, I will gladly join you, or we can just hang out at the beach when we have time during the day. She didn't like that too much. She said that isn't what friendship is about, and I should enjoy the company enough not to care. I told her that I understood and I would gladly hang out with her when food or drink isn't in question because it's too expensive not to enjoy it. She said that there is nothing else to do around here. Then I asked if it's just about friends. Maybe she can eat first and join us out sometimes, and other times we can go to where she wants. She then told me that she's not going to sit around watching people eat meat. I said, okay, I get it, and you need to get that I'm not catering to your needs each time I'm free to hang out. I later got a text from a mutual friend that Lauren was upset, but she agreed with me because she was tired of the same shit. Of course this friend doesn't like conflict, so just listen to Lauren. So AITA, for not wanting to continue to eat food I don't like or refrain from having a drink or two to keep the peace here, or am I right in feeling like she's being selfish expecting the rest of us to do what she's comfortable with each time? Relevant comments. Comment 1, NTA, but drop the friends that don't like conflict. Why surround yourself with spineless morons? OP, true. It was all getting on my nerves and why I was happy not going anymore. However, I sometimes wonder if I'm an asshole when others just easily bend to other people. I appreciate that. Comment 2, NTA, Lauren is an ass though. The condescending comments about meat and alcohol are beyond me. OP, the alcohol really pissed me off. It was such a self-righteous type of behavior to me. Comment 3, NTA. She's exactly right. That isn't what friendship is about, and so why can't she enjoy hanging out with her friends who are allowed to eat and drink whatever they want, while she eats and drinks what she wants? I'm sorry, there's probably not a great ending here, but the way she's framed the situation can easily be turned around back on her, so she's not right. Neither is she wrong. It just may be that you two are incompatible as friends. OP, yes, I'm feeling we are not a good fit. To be honest, I am working hard on setting boundaries, but sometimes I question if I'm not going overboard, especially when many other women my age seem to just go along with something. I felt like she was being extremely selfish but thought I could be missing something, and why I asked. OP on if she had a problem with Lauren being a vegan and doesn't drink. OP, no. The problem is that I'm expected to become a vegan and not drink in her presence. I don't care what she does, but she cares what I do and the other women as well. OP on the food choices in the area. OP, nice try. I live in a small beach town. There is shitty food to begin with, so the options are extremely limited here. So I can't tell you how many salads I have been limited to eating while going out with her. There are no solely vegan restaurants and very few that have vegan options. She doesn't make it worthwhile to listen to negativity to get what you actually want, so that leaves fucking salad. So just because you misinterpret what I meant or assume the worst in people doesn't mean you're right. Fucking fame? Seriously. Damn. I thought my life was pretty lame just asking this question, and to think someone thinks I'd actually make this shit up. FFS. Update. Thank you so much to the countless people who commented on my post shown below. You made me realize that I wasn't an AH and shouldn't have put up with her BS. Many asked how I put up with it for so long. I don't have a good answer, but it was more about the group itself where I didn't want to create drama. My experience with friends has been lucky, as most everyone has been loving, fun and selfless. We can also call each other out on BS by busting chops and laughing. This was my first group who met semi-regularly, and the others were very sweet to where I felt uncomfortable rocking the boat. Anyway, yesterday it was a bazillion degrees out here in Florida and I was playing tennis with Lauren and 2 others. We were dying. I don't normally play with her, but these women are all on my team I joined coming up in the fall, so we needed to start practicing. No, I did not join because of Lauren. LOL. I've played against the other 2 throughout the years and they have been asking for me to play for a long time now. I live in a small area, so it's common for circles to mix like this. One of the ladies had to stop due to dizziness, cramping and nausea. We all decided that we should only play much earlier in the summer. Except of course Lauren, who didn't want to wake up early because she said she didn't play well then. That's when I had it. With the power of thousands of random Reddit strangers in my head, I basically told her off. I told her I've never met someone so self-absorbed in my entire life, and it was disgusting that she would even think that way in front of a teammate who clearly had heat exhaustion, let alone have it come out of her mouth. I said all this while her ass was sitting down, while the other woman and I got a cold wet towel for this woman and got her to drink. Lauren stormed off. These other 2 thanked me. One was her usual partner, who is the sweetest person alive and said she has been wanting to tell her off for a year now. The other one, who was feeling like shit, said she is going to tell the captain that she needs to go because she is like a cancer on the team. I am very happy to say that I will not be dealing with her selfish BS any longer. She can go shove a carrot up her ass for all I care. LOL, thanks so much everyone. Tonight I'm going to have a giant hamburger and a cold beverage in your honor. Cheers. Relevant comments. OP not respecting Lauren's wishes and trying to make this whole thing about herself and not Lauren. OP, I did say something and suggested other things. She wasn't having it. I wasn't pouting. We are busy and have lives, so this isn't the end of the world, and I was quite happy with that choice. I kindly told her my feelings and she told me I wasn't being a good friend because it isn't about the food. So then why do we have to eat her shit every time then? I wasn't hurt over the videos. It was fucked up to cross others' boundaries like that, as she was some self-righteous queen of health. She's controlling, as thousands have pointed out. That should be clear with her not budging on playing in the mornings after her teammate got sick from the heat. I spoke with her already calmly and nicely. She never budged and only expected me to continue to bend to her needs, inferring I was not a good friend. I still ended that conversation in a respectful manner to then learn she goes to a mutual friend to bitch about me. It was after the above that I felt she was extremely selfish, but I still wasn't sure because she turned it around on me. That's why I came here to Reddit. I didn't go off on her about the food. I went off on her because there was a woman about to throw up due to extreme heat. While another woman and myself were trying to cool her down and make sure she was okay, Lauren made it again about her. She sat there bitching about not wanting to play earlier because she doesn't play well early in the morning. BTW, that is complete bullshit because the matches start early in the mornings and she's played in this league for many years. I'm sorry, but you must be extremely infuriating to anyone who needs your help and needs you to listen. You fill in gaps to stories that don't exist, you assume what people are feeling and why they have done certain things, and then come across in a very pompous manner that you are correct. Yes, you're absolutely correct to the shit you literally made up in your head. However, you are very far off from what happened with me, how I felt and why I acted the way I did. Now to the next story, story 2. When a girl in the gym asked for help while recording, I refused, sparking an unexpected turn of events. Was I wrong? I think I acted rudely with a girl in the gym and wanted to get opinions on if I was the AH in this situation. I, 41M, go to the gym early in the morning around 5:30 a.m. There are generally very few people that come to the gym at that time. There is a girl, early 20s, that also comes to the gym at the same time. We always say hello to each other and have small talk between our sets. She comes in early because the gym is empty, and she likes to record herself working out as she wants to be a fitness influencer or something. She seems dedicated and we have known each other for at least a year. This morning, as I was working out, she came to me and asked for help. She was very excited and told me that she wanted to go for a PR on barbell squat. She asked me if I could spot her as she was not confident if she would be able to do it. I said okay, as this is not the most uncommon thing. For people who are unfamiliar, this is an exercise where you carry a barbell with weights on your back and perform a squat. The spotter has to stand behind the person and support the person in case they fail to get up. As she was getting ready, I saw her phone in the corner and asked her if I could be off camera or if she can stop recording. She said she really wanted to record herself doing it and I will look good on camera. I told her that I really do not want to be on camera as my wife or co-workers may watch the video if she posts it online and may not look good for me. Another reason that I did not tell her was that she was wearing a very revealing outfit, small sports bra and tight shorts, and I really did not feel comfortable being recorded standing behind her. She promised me that she will record it for herself, and not post the video. However, I just did not want to be recorded. I told her that I really feel uncomfortable. And if she waits for 30 minutes, one of the trainers may be able to help her. She became really upset and asked me why I'm making the situation weird. She accused me of sexualizing her. She asked me if she was a man, would I have done it? I felt she had a point as I have done it for other people. I told her that I would be okay doing it, but I just don't want to be recorded doing it. She again went on a rant about me body shaming her and me being uncomfortable with her perfectly fine outfit. I felt bad that I upset her as she was just trying to work out. I have also asked people to spot me in past, and people always helped. However, I just did not want to be recorded. Am I the AH to refuse to spot her because she was recording it? I don't want her to feel that it was because of her clothes, or because she is a girl. However, as a married man, I need to observe some boundaries and really don't want to be recorded in that way with a girl half my age. I am also worried that she recorded our whole conversation and may post it online. I do not know what I should do in this situation and am a bit worried. Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. People who are pointing out the line of how you think it would look inappropriate if a coworker or wife saw you aren't familiar with lifting. If she reached failure, it would absolutely look bad on you, because people don't understand what spotting and having to assist with squats looks like. That was exactly what went through my mind. Plus, who knows what commentary someone can put on top of those videos to make it go viral. Update. I had posted on a different forum 3 weeks ago about me refusing to help a girl in the gym for spotting her barbell squat because she was recording us. I did not think it would blow up so much that my wife got this story on her TikTok. What happened after was pretty unexpected, and my life is a bit absurd right now. I was worried that she would post our conversation about me refusing her help online and show me as the bad guy. I told my wife about the conversation, and she said that she has seen posts where young girls do add nasty voiceovers and make men my age look like creeps for views. My wife told me that I should just complain to the gym management about her for recording me without my consent, just to get ahead of things. When I went to the gym next week, I saw her again. I tried to keep my distance, but she kept on smiling at me. As I finished my sets, she came to me and asked me if we could talk. She wanted to apologize for her behavior from the previous day and how it was wrong of her to assume that I would be okay with her recording me. It was a pleasant surprise, as I was not expecting that. I told her that it was okay, and I just don't like to be recorded in general. She followed me outside and continued the conversation. She asked me how long I have been working out and I could advise her on her form. I told her that there are some really good personal trainers in the gym I could recommend to her, but she told me that she is unemployed and cannot afford them. She told me she will buy me a coffee if I can give her some pointers. At this point, I felt I was just being rude and told her sure, and we went to a nearby coffee shop. Her name is Haley. She graduated last year, moved back to her mom's house and is looking for a job. She was very chubby last year and wants to look like the TikTok fitness models and is trying hard to get in shape. We had a nice conversation, and I was able to help her with some of her questions. She already knew my name and asked me if my wife would be okay if she follows me on Instagram. I told her that the main purpose of that account is for my wife to spy on my friends' lives, so I generally don't use it. She asked me if I use Snapchat, and I had to remind her that I am twice her age. This is where it got crazy. When I came home, I told my wife about what happened. My wife loves her Reels and TikTok and wanted to see if she ever posted the video from the previous week. I only knew that her first name was Haley and how she looked and told my wife about it. When I came back from work in the evening, my wife was already home and sitting on the sofa. She was grinning ear to ear and told me to immediately sit next to her. Apparently, this girl had been posing about me and calling me her gym crush for the last 2 months. My face is blurred out in all the videos. A lot of videos were of her sitting in her car every morning and making up completely fictional romantic stories about our interactions. Each video had like 100+ likes, which my wife says is not a lot, but feels like a lot. She had posted some videos of us just passing each other and smiling, or our conversation where I was telling her to stop recording, with a voiceover about how I approached her in the gym and complimented her body. There was a video from that morning about her coming to me while I was packing up, with her saying how I asked her out for a coffee. She is just making up fictional romantic bullshit for getting likes, and people were commenting and cheering for her. There were also other videos of her working out and posing in the gym locker room. My wife was laughing uncontrollably about how big of a sucker I am and how I'm internet famous now. I told her this needs to stop, but my wife insisted that she is too invested in the drama now and wants to see what happens next. She said that this girl is really young, and just trying to establish herself and get more followers. Plus, she has not done anything inappropriate and is not showing my face in the videos. My wife just wants me to play along and see what crazy Haley does next. So for the last 2 weeks, I have been going to the gym, talking to her every day, and my wife keeps me updated on what story she came up with for the day. We go for a coffee every Wednesday and I am mentoring her about nutrition and what she should focus on, to the best of my abilities. It's all a game for my wife, and I do want Haley to succeed as long as she does not cross a line. However, the whole thing feels really crazy, and I'm too old to deal with this shit. I am not sure how long I can keep up with the act. Her behavior seems innocent, but also, I'm getting a bit uncomfortable with the whole thing now. Relevant comments. Did the girl know OOP is married? OP, yes. She knows I'm married. I wear my ring in the gym, and also I talk about my wife all the time to her. I also feel it's a bit weird for a 22-year-old person to make up stories. My wife feels she is just using me as an NPC in her fiction to gain more viewers and create drama. We discussed it and she told me about how some girls just make up stories about bad first dates on TikTok as it gets them a lot of views. My wife feels it's weird, but I need to see the humor in this situation. At least it's entertaining and she wants to know where her story goes next. What was all about in the coffee discussion? OP. What are the coffee discussions like? It seems weird for her to do that if it is just for TikTok attention, it's easier for her to make stuff up. The coffee discussions are very fitness oriented, and she genuinely has legit questions. We do discuss stuff about our lives, mostly hers, and she shares her struggles in getting a job and life in general for a Gen Z person. However, she has never said anything inappropriate. I feel she must have had some footage of me passing her and smiling and greeting her and just used that in her edits. My parents are making me give up my baby for adoption. I'm heartbroken and unsure of what to do next. They've left me with no choice. Plus new update. I'm 16 years old. I got pregnant by somebody I work with. He's 18 and is about to graduate high school. He's planning to join the military after he graduates. He's not my boyfriend. We were never in a relationship like that. I mean, I wish he was, but he doesn't seem interested in that. We're friends. He flirts with me. I lost my virginity to him. He didn't force me or anything like that. I've had sex with him multiple times. I'm 15 weeks pregnant now. Everyone knows. Well, not everyone because I'm still hiding it from a lot of people. But he knows, and my parents know. I'm embarrassed by it. I feel like an idiot, like a joke, like trash. I just wish I could hide until after the baby's born. I want to never leave my house. My parents are basically forcing me to give the baby up for adoption. I live in a state with heavy abortion restrictions. It's way too late to even get one now. My parents don't believe in abortion either. They told me this is my punishment for getting pregnant, that I deserve to have to deal with being pregnant now. They've decided that I'm giving the baby away and have already set up a meeting with an adoption agency. They say they won't let me ruin my life with a baby, and they aren't going to raise my baby either. So, this is the only other option. My mom keeps saying, "You'll thank us later." I didn't get pregnant on purpose. I don't really want to be a mom right now. I turned 17 over the summer and will only be starting my junior year next year. At the same time, going through pregnancy and giving birth just to give my baby away terrifies me. I don't know if I can live with it. It literally makes me feel like I want to throw up or pass out. I feel like I have no choice but to go along with what my parents want. It's not like I could support myself, let alone me and a baby. I could never just do it on my own. I was too scared to get an abortion earlier on before I told my parents I was pregnant. I was so scared that I'd get in trouble, but now I realize that probably would have been the easiest thing for me. If anyone reading this has given a baby up for adoption and survived it, please let me know what it was like. Do you get over it? Do you really end up feeling like it's the best thing for them and you're able to just live with it? Relevant comments. OP on her parents and raising a baby by herself. I know, and I'm not suggesting that I raise a baby by myself. I know it's not really possible. I would need a lot of help, which is also not possible for me given how my parents feel about it. So at the end of the day, sure, it's my choice, but I'm sort of cornered into only being able to make one choice. OP on the father, and if he knew she's pregnant, he knows I'm pregnant, and he knows my parents are essentially forcing adoption. I think he's relieved that they've decided this and are going to force me into it. I think he feels bad, but at the same time he doesn't want to be a parent, so he says stuff like, "Yeah, that's probably the best thing." OP on if her parents are choosing to take a legal route against the father. I'm in the US. He just turned 18 in April. They don't really want to involve him. I thought they'd confront him in person, demand to speak to his parents and stuff like that. They didn't react like that at all. I mean, they're mad at him and they blame him for this too. But they want to keep him removed from it all probably so nobody will interfere with what they've decided the plan is. IDK. Update: I'm 20 weeks pregnant now and will turn 17 within the next few weeks. My parents are still forcing me to give my baby up for adoption. We've met with an adoption agency. The adoption counselor knows that I don't want to do adoption. She asked to speak with me privately without my parents present to ask me a series of questions. I was honest and told her I didn't want to give my baby away, but I had no other choice. She seems to feel bad about it and told me that I will ultimately have to sign the papers after the baby is born. My parents cannot sign the papers. Unfortunately, without my parents' help, I have no other options. The adoption counselor talked to us about the option of my parents adopting my baby, which I don't really want either. No worries, my parents aren't interested in raising another baby. My parents want me to look at the potential families. I'm trying to look at them. It's so weird thinking that I'm looking at parents for my own baby. I know I'm not ready to be a mom, but it's still so weird. None of this feels like it's happening to me. I've talked to the baby's father. He graduated high school and goes off to basic training later this summer. I think he'd be fine with adoption. He said he doesn't really know what other options we have. We could get married since the military would at least help pay for a place to live and we'd have medical benefits, but I can't get married without parental consent. We don't love each other. What kind of marriage would that be? But it seems like the only realistic solution. I hate the idea of being married at 17 years old and to a person who doesn't genuinely want to be married to me. So then another option which still involves marriage might be for his parents to help out, even take care of the baby and let me see him or her until I'm 18 and don't need my parents' permission to get married. That doesn't really seem fair to them. He could try to object to an adoption, but it's not guaranteed that his wishes would be respected. Plus, then what happens to the baby? His parents seem like good people. I don't know them well, but I've met them. They're worried about what this will do to his future, but they told my parents they believe it should be our decision and that it's their job as parents to help us. My parents basically said it's their job to protect me and that all of the responsibility will fall on me and it'll be my life that's ruined. Our families met to discuss everything, but it was really just parents telling them what was going to happen, and that they and their son had no say. Relevant comments. OP on the ideal adoption situation she would like to see happening to the child. I don't have an ideal adoption situation right now, because I still can't accept adoption. But probably two gay guys. It's the women in these couples I look at that seem more fake than the men for the most part. Again, I know this sounds terrible to say. Something about a lot of the women is just really rubbing me the wrong way. Maybe two lesbians, because the few lesbian couples I've seen at least seem more genuine than the straight women. Well, in some cases the gay couples could have their own biological children, even if the children didn't share both parents' DNA. But I'm just more drawn to those couples and the profiles I've seen just seem more genuine. But yes, it feels like nobody is good enough for my baby. I acknowledge that it might not seem rational. If you've never been in the position of having to look at families, all complete strangers, to give your baby to, you probably can't fully understand. I'm allowed to be picky. This could be the biggest, most important decision in my entire life, and this is the only part of the whole adoption thing I actually have much of a say in. I'm only 20 weeks pregnant, not 38. There's no rule stating I have to have a family picked out yet. Some people take longer picking out a new car to buy. It's not as if adoption was a choice I came to on my own and even feel positive about. So yeah, looking at potential adoptive families is going to give me some feelings. As I stated, it's not a matter of thinking I can or cannot provide a better life. It's a totally bizarre and heartbreaking thing to do, to read through the profiles of families to give your baby to. And there are a ton of families. Update: having a boy. I don't know why I'm suddenly getting a ton of responses on my post from a week ago, but I figured I'd post an update because a few things have changed. I had an ultrasound on Friday and found out I'm having a baby boy. He's basically fully formed and just needs to get bigger now. I saw his head and his nose, and they even got a picture of the bottom of his 2 feet together because he was sort of sideways at first and we had to get him to move. It looks sort of like footprints. I could clearly see his little hands and everything. So I already said it in my previous post, but people are still sending my info about abortion. I know those people are trying to help, and I wish I had maybe reached out here when I first found out I was pregnant, since I didn't know I could get pills mailed to my house. I just can't get an abortion now. It's a fully formed baby. I even named him. It won't solve my problem at this point, because my biggest problem with adoption is how I'm going to live with it mentally for the rest of my life. Now that I know it's a baby moving around in there and stuff, I think I would also not mentally be able to handle an abortion now. If it was still just a lump of cells, I'd feel different, but I was too scared to do anything then. After the ultrasound, I sent the baby's father the pics. He wasn't there. My parents don't want him or his family involved now, probably because I told them he offered to marry me and they yelled at me for even considering that. I told him I can't give the baby away and asked if his parents were really serious about helping and if he'd hate me for keeping it. He said he won't hate me. I still think he'll blame me for ruining his life. He already told me he thinks adoption is the best choice. If we got married and he got caught cheating on me, even if I was okay with it, he could get in a lot of trouble. He said, "Why would I cheat on you?" He said he likes me. He wouldn't have sex with me if he didn't like me. He just didn't see the point in us being in a relationship since he was leaving anyway. It was just easier that way. The thing is, I know I'm not the only girl he's been with during that time. I'm not stupid enough to think I'm special to him or he loves me. And we both know it's sort of ridiculous to imagine us being married or acting like adults, but I guess that's what you have to do if you have a baby. I can't really imagine being a wife, but maybe it wouldn't be too bad and I'd get to move away from my parents. He said it's really weird to think about, but I have very few options and he doesn't know what else he's supposed to offer, but he's going to talk to his parents since I'm too shy to. I guess I'm assuming they were just saying it to be nice but are probably happy my parents are making me do the adoption. He says his parents aren't like that. I'm really just an inconvenience to everyone, and if I keep my baby he might end up not liking me too. I don't want to screw up my baby's life. I would do everything I could to be a good mom. I would grow up and learn how to be a wife and mom and an adult. I can't imagine living after giving my baby to somebody else. Also, if you're looking to adopt a baby, please do not message me here. Many people already have and I just delete those messages. It's creepy. If I do put my son up for adoption, it will not be to somebody I met through Reddit. I'm sorry. It's just very creepy to be messaged by adults here who want to adopt my baby. There was a comment full of hard truths left on this update. I feel horrible for you. You're in a terrible position. But your current plan does not make sense, and is not healthy for the baby. You want to marry the father who really doesn't want to be a father, because you'll have access to military housing and benefits. Being a military spouse is incredibly difficult. You will have to go where he goes, which means you will not really have support from his parents, because they will not pack up and follow you every time he is relocated. So no real support from your family or his. It will be difficult for you to build your own career because your jobs will have to be accessible to where he is based out of. He will resent you for pushing for this marriage that you admit is loveless and would be out of convenience. So your plan right now means your baby will grow up with a dad who doesn't want him, a strained and/or distant relationship with grandparents, parents with an unhealthy relationship, and financial hardship. And you will be unable to leave when things inevitably implode in your marriage, because you will not be financially independent, and you will not have any support from your family. My heart breaks for you because you clearly love the little boy already, but it's a really bad idea for everyone involved. At this point it's one of those things where love means doing what's best for him. And what's best for him is being in a stable environment. Edited to add, because I keep seeing you say you aren't sure how it works in the military, I wanted to throw out there that I do, and that I'm not saying all this because I'm just guessing. My dad was in the Army. My long-term ex was in the Army. My best friend is married to a Marine. My other best friend is married to a man in the Army. And my cousin is in the Air Force. Being a military spouse is difficult no matter what branch you are talking about, and no matter how promising the benefits sound. Most people in healthy, loving long-term relationships struggle with the hurdles that come in military relationships. Two very young people who don't love each other with a baby and financial hardship? I don't see that working. My parents are forcing me to give my baby up for adoption. I'm getting married and moving in with strangers. I'm 24 weeks pregnant now. I just turned 17. My parents have been trying to force me to give my baby boy up for adoption. I've made several posts about it. I don't want to do it. We've met with the adoption agency and looked at families. I don't think I can survive if I do it. I can't imagine my baby being out there or forever being a nuisance to an adoptive family. They said if I keep the baby, I'll be doing it all on my own. They aren't going to help me in any way. The baby's father's family is willing to help me though. The baby's father isn't my boyfriend. I know that probably sounds bad. We were never officially in a relationship, just friends really. But his parents have been a lot nicer throughout this whole thing. I don't know them well, but I'm getting to know them better now. I'm going to have to, since they are willing to help me, us. They aren't really happy that I'm pregnant, but they believe it should have been my decision about what to do about the pregnancy and eventual baby, and that as parents it's their job to help and support that decision. He's joining the military. His dad is retired military, brother is military. It is what he's always wanted to do. He just started basic training. So the plan is that we're going to get married when his family and I go out there for his graduation. Unless he changes his mind between now and then, which he might. I know he might. He hasn't said that, but I'm just scared he will. There wasn't time to do it before he left. Anyway, his tech school is over a year long, so the baby and I could move out there with him if need be. Or I can stay with his family here until he goes to his permanent duty station. That would allow me to graduate high school instead of getting a general educational development. Or at least finish the next year of high school normally. I need notarized approval to take the general educational development. At 17 and my parents refuse, but they've agreed to sign paperwork to allow me to get married. I don't understand them. I don't understand how they'd rather allow me to get married and go live with another family instead of just allowing me and my baby to live at home until I finish school and turned 18. It makes no sense. I'm not even a parent yet and I wouldn't let my 17-year-old get married. If it was between my 17-year-old getting married and moving across the country or supporting her decision to keep her baby and assisting her with finding resources to enable her to parent, I know which option I'd choose as the parent and it wouldn't be marriage. It hurts so bad. They've essentially said if he's going to marry me and his family is going to help us, then I'm not their problem now, so they'll sign off on that. They yelled at me, called me names, and locked me in my room. I could go back to being the daughter they love if I would just go along with their plan, but these things will never be the same between us again. His parents were the ones who convinced them to approve of the marriage. They met with my parents. Actually, we all met together. They've been the only ones advocating for me at all. They want me to finish school. They're going to help me arrange childcare and I'm going to move in with them before the baby is born. I will take my newborn baby home to their house. I don't even know these people. It's strange and uncomfortable for me, but I'm at the point where I can't be picky about what help is offered. Luckily, the baby will be covered by his dad's insurance no matter what, and I will be covered by insurance once we're married. I'm not planning to depend on military benefits to address all our needs. It's just one piece of the puzzle. After I graduate, I plan to get certified for something that has good career prospects and pays well. I'm going to be smart about what field I select, and I will use any opportunity to find grants or scholarships to help pay. My parents want me to go straight to a traditional 4-year college. I'm in honors classes now. I get really good grades. I scored very high on the PSAT. I should go to college, but I'm not really interested in any of the career fields that make college worth it. Financially, in my eyes. Unless I got a huge scholarship, I'd be paying mostly with student loans. So I'm looking into other avenues where I can enter my chosen career field much sooner and start making good money quicker without incurring so much debt. I'm really scared about everything. I've never had to do any adult things. I've blown up my whole life by getting pregnant and not going along with my parents' plan. I don't even feel like I have parents now. I never thought my family would end up this way. I sort of just want to go along with their plan because in many ways it'd be a lot easier. I could go back to my life and still be accepted by my parents and have their love and support again, but my life will never be the same. I think I'd regret taking the easy way out. I don't think adoption would be easy for me at all, but as far as day-to-day life struggles, it'd probably help easier. I think I'd grow up and hate myself for doing it, and I'd never be able to undo it. What I'm doing now is the only option that I don't think I'll spend my whole life regretting. At least it won't make me feel like a coward. I still feel sick to my stomach when I think about everything that's happening. That I'm going to live with virtual strangers. That I'm going to get married. That I will eventually move across the country and be a mom and a wife before I can even legally drink alcohol. Although moving across the country doesn't sound too bad right now. I just don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm probably taking on too much, but it still makes me happier than when I thought I'd have no choice but to sign adoption papers. Relevant comments: Maroon Sweater, 1 and 23. Setting aside the fact that this nightmare situation should not exist and a shotgun contract marriage is probably not a great solution, OP won't just have access to healthcare and housing. Spouses have access to some education benefits too. Or they did in 2014. God, I'm old. Geez. Honestly hoping this is a military recruiter troll or a pro-abortion troll because this poor fucking kid. Swim Sweater. She'll have access to some education benefits right away, but there are people who prey on those and scam you out of them for utterly useless certificates. My heart breaks for her because she and her baby daddy are going to be miserable. I don't think she realizes how tough it's going to be financially on top of emotionally. I really hope his family helps her sign up for whatever aid they'll qualify for, like women, infants and children, and use the Army Emergency Relief Car Seat Program to get one for free. Creepy. Snow 8166. Unfortunately, there's no optimal solution for OP. Even if she decided to abort, it's too late for her now. I imagine it would be very difficult to go through pregnancy and birth. Then give your own flesh and blood away to strangers. I can't blame her for not choosing that route, but it also sucks that she will need to sacrifice so much, and be in an unwanted marriage and living arrangement, in order to keep her baby. OP has to choose between two shitty choices. I messaged her about a government program that houses pregnant teens and helps them find housing arrangements and educational job opportunities, but since she's been getting a deluge of messages, she probably skipped over mine. In my humble opinion, something like that would have been a great third choice. Cathouse Chicken. I think the saddest thing about something like this is the type of people to talk her out of an abortion are the same type of people that wouldn't want to allocate funds for helping a young single mother. Our anti-abortion policies, coupled with lack of public funds to help new mothers who don't get abortions, really reiterate the purpose of anti-abortion policy, and that's to create a baby pipeline for adopters. Am I the asshole for refusing to raise my husband's children from his affair now that he and the woman he cheated with have passed away? Sorry for using a new account. I know that's a red flag, but I don't want to risk using my old Reddit account. My 45F husband, 49M, of 23 years has been having an affair with a 20-years-old girl since 2020. I found out this year when his affair partner gave birth to twin boys in March. Obviously we were going to divorce. We've been hashing things out since. It's been a lengthy process due to some properties in common, and we needed to get an accountant since he used the shared account for his affair. Finally, things seemed to be getting close to the end when both my husband and the woman he cheated with were killed in a car crash. By some miracle, the twin babies were not harmed in the crash. Now they are orphaned and neither set of grandparents can take them in permanently. My husband's parents are both in assisted living. He has no siblings and the only aunt that could take them refuses. She's been child-free her whole life. On the woman's side, I'm not sure the details in full, but her parents are also not able to be involved long-term, and the one sister she has lives overseas. Since we were still married and he had not updated his will, all his assets are set to pass to me and our 2 children. I'm not callous enough to leave those babies with nothing, so I agreed to let whoever is their legal guardian to have the remaining balance in the shared account. About $25,000 in savings. The issue is no one wants to take them in. Now my in-laws are pressuring me to take them in and raise them. The issue is, I don't want to. At all. I wouldn't love them and I don't want to be the evil stepmother. But I know a big part of me will always have a level of resentment towards them. I will probably favor my own children. It's not their fault, but I truly loved my husband and I thought we were happy before I found out about the affair. We have 2 daughters, 14 and 16. Obviously we had disagreements, but never insulted each other before. Then I found out about the affair and he began calling me names and blaming me for his cheating. He became abusive and even tried to kick me off the house, my childhood home that is not shared property for the record. I'm also raising teenagers alone now. I don't have the energy to raise babies anymore. My daughters hate their baby brothers. I tried to get them to spend time with their dad as we were divorcing, but they refused. Since this all was found out because of the babies, there wasn't really a way to sugarcoat the situation. And they are also too old to really get away with it. Most of my friends agree it's not my place to care for those children, but my in-laws, the affair woman's parents and my mother want me to raise them. I know my mom is just having grandkids fever, but it hurts to not have her support. I have to make a decision by next week or the boys will be going into foster care. At the moment they are temporarily placed with their maternal grandparents. I feel horrible, but I am very sure I can't take them in. Small update. Hey everyone, this blew up far more than I thought, and I appreciate the well wishes for my girls, the boys and myself. Also for the amount of lovely people offering to see about giving the twins a good home. I might not be their mother, but it does touch me and makes me glad there's good people out there. After thinking carefully and speaking to my lawyer, reading responses, doing research, etc. I plan to speak to the grandparents tomorrow and refuse to take legal guardianship of the boys. I will let them know of the usernames of people that offered meetings for private adoptions or fostering, but my daughters are my priority. It'll be up to the twins' grandparents to decide if they'll proceed with adoption, keep them, or turn them to the state. I wish I had the mental capacity to be the person to do this, but I have 2 girls that are going through a lot and they need my full attention. I'll also be talking to the lawyers to figure out if the boys have any inheritance claim properly. If they do, I'll separate it and leave it to the lawyers to do what they need to do for them to have access when it's best. If they don't, I'll find a way to ensure they have access to the $25,000 I was going to give them since the beginning. I won't do more, however. My moral compass might be biased, but I don't believe I'm obligated neither morally or legally to do more than what the word of law says. I can't help everyone and I shouldn't have to. I have 2 girls that lost their father, 2 girls that need therapy, 2 girls just about to get to college. They've gone through enough without seeing their mother favor the children of their father's mistress. Now to the next story, story 2. My stepmother abused my fiancé's young brother, causing a family rift that threatens to destroy our wedding and relationships forever. Original post. Mention of child Abu *E. It's not too graphic, but it's there. I tried posting this on AITA through a different account a couple days ago, but it didn't work out. Given the trigger warning, I'm not surprised. I have since concluded my wife and I did the right thing, so this will be my last attempt to post this story. I tried to add some info and change the wording a little. All names are fake. My 28M stepmother, 49F, is a wannabe party planner. She has taken it upon herself to plan and host every party and holiday my dad's family has thrown since she married him. I never loved those occasions growing up. She's controlling and gets upset if people complain about anything, but humored her for my dad's sake. According to him, this helps her feel included. I'm getting married to my fiancée Jane, 26F, in July. We got engaged in early 2021, but Jane ended up getting pregnant a couple months after that, and we decided to postpone the wedding to focus on our son for a while. So we've had a long engagement. My stepmother has tried to hijack our wedding plans from day one, complaining, contacting our planner, showing up unannounced to Jane's dress appointments, etc. And we have repeatedly asked her to stop. Dad wants us to humor her, but she's clearly resentful of the fact that she's not hosting the wedding or being labeled mother of the groom in invitations. Besides our baby boy, we also have Luke, 4M, Jane's paternal half-brother. She got custody of him a few months into our relationship, after his parents died. I ended up moving in with them during the pandemic, and have been in Luke's life since he was a baby. He doesn't call me dad, and refers to us as his sister and his OP, but we love him like a son. Stepmother though hates Luke. She accuses Jane of baby-trapping her way into the family. That accusation only got worse after our son was born. My dad gets along with Jane and adores the kids, but stepmother demands him to refuse babysitting Luke, so we don't leave the kids with them often. Instead, Jane's brother and CL usually watch the kids for us, as their children are close to ours in age. We had a thing last Sunday, and my Bill was out of town with his family. Jane's other siblings live in different cities, as well as my mom and sister. My dad agreed to babysit at our place and we left. We came back to find both kids crying, stepmother screaming, and dad weakly trying to calm everyone down. Apparently, Luke had told stepmother that both he and our son were going to be our ring bearers, and she went ballistic. She screamed that she wasn't going to allow that because he wasn't family. She then made me need to include the trigger warning when he started crying. His lip is still split. She'd never gotten to this point before. We immediately banned her from our house and from our wedding. Dad is fuming and has said he's not going without her. He's also convinced half of his side of the family, by severely downplaying what stepmother did, to boycott the wedding as well. This includes my stepbrother, who fully agrees with his mother no matter how many times I try to tell him the truth. Me and Jane are refusing to budge, but many of my cousins who aren't coming anymore are asking us to reconsider. Pretty much all of Jane's family agrees with us, but one of her aunts has suggested that maybe stepmother is acting out because she doesn't feel welcomed by my family. I've honestly had it with my family enabling her behavior. I love my dad, and really want him at my wedding, but I am more than willing to go NC if it means protecting my family. Edit. I think I accidentally deleted the paragraph where I mentioned this, but we did press charges. We took Luke to the pediatrician the next day and gathered every piece of evidence we had. Not only did we have pictures of Luke's face, but by some miraculous strike of luck, we also had nanny cam footage. Some commenters were right to assume that my SM hadn't been invited to our house, but my dad hasn't really gone anywhere without her in years, so we took precautions. We didn't expect her to actually do anything this awful, but we've never trusted her with the kids. The physical attack happened off camera, but there is some footage of her screaming and Luke crying before and after the event. She now has a child abuse charge on her rap sheet. We wouldn't let her get away with this. Edit 2. There is a lot of additional info I want to add. I'll try to respond to at least some of the comments. I did not expect the amount I've gotten so far, but all I'll add for now is that Luke is okay. The visit to the pediatrician happened the day after. He already had a counselor. Jane was pretty traumatized when her dad and stepmom died, and was worried it would rub off on him, and will continue treatment. We've been hugging and pampering him a little more than usual too. He's still upset, but is already doing much better. Update 1. I want to thank everybody who took the time to read and/or comment on my previous post. It's been a tough week, but it's always great to know that people care. I haven't been able to reply to every comment, but I will try to address some in this update. This might get a little long. I'll start off by saying that me and Jane are going NC with my dad and SM. We haven't really spoken to either of them since the incident, and I don't plan on being the one to reach out. Any communication between us is being handled by my younger sister. She's completely on our side, but will remain in low contact for the time being. I've decided to adopt Jane's way of dealing with people she cares about. Forgive what's apologized for, but never forget. Basically, if Dad or SM ever truly understand what they did wrong and sincerely apologize, we're willing to forgive them. Even if begrudgingly so, but we will never ignore, or let them forget, what they did to our family. And for the time being, neither of them will be allowed near Luke, our baby, and any other kids we may have in the future, even if we do forgive them. As for the rest of my family, I read a lot of comments suggesting that I post pictures of Luke's face, as well as the nanny cam footage. I'm not very active on social media, but even if I was, I'm not comfortable exposing my injured preschooler like that, especially given that nothing on the internet ever truly goes away. I also decided not to share the pictures with my family unless truly necessary. I should probably mention that while my family adores my dad, most of them aren't very fond of SM. She had 2 failed marriages prior to meeting my father, the first of which resulted in my stepbrother, and he cheated on his then girlfriend to be with her. My family loved that girlfriend and disliked SM right away. Not only has she been controlling and manipulative since the beginning, she's also tried to force her way into the family matriarch role by any means possible. Taking over planning duties for every family event was her favorite way to do it, because of all the attention and compliments that come with it. The main reason why I hated these parties growing up was because she'd always find a way to make everything about her, including Christmas and mine and my sister's birthdays. The rest of the family felt neutral about it, but they never liked her. With Luke, it was different. Most of my relatives didn't meet him until COVID restrictions got looser, and by then he was 2 years old. He's a bright and genuinely lovable kid, and there weren't really any other small children in the family, so everyone immediately started cooing over him. The way I see it, SM got upset that Jane and Luke were accepted by my family so easily compared to her experience, and that's why she resents them both, but I can't confirm that. She was also mad that, aside from not being the planner, she would have absolutely no involvement in the wedding party. She tried to pressure us into letting her officiate. One of Jane's best friends was offered that role a year ago, making stepbrother my best man. He wasn't interested and I'd already gotten my best friend. Or asking her sister's daughter to be our flower girl. We'd promised Jane's 3-year-old niece. Also, her sister's daughter is 15 and doesn't know us. She also tried to convince us to let my dad walk Jane down the aisle, since her father's gone, but her eldest brother, the Bill I mentioned in the first post, had already been enlisted. SM was disappointed that my family wasn't as involved in the wedding as Jane's, and kept making comments about how that would never happen if we put her in charge. All of that being said, there's nothing that can excuse being that awful to a child, especially if it really is the petty jealousy that I suspect. Because I haven't spoken with my father, my sister has been keeping me updated on what he's been up to. As I found out through her, the story my dad and SM told the rest of the family completely erases Luke's injury and the abuse charges. It insinuates that me and Jane banned them because we got annoyed with SM and decided to take it out on my dad as well. Because most people already disliked SM, explaining what actually happened that night wasn't hard, and most of the relatives that I actually wanted at the wedding have apologized and are berating my dad as well. The people that didn't believe us, as well as those saying we overreacted, have been told they are not welcome in our home anymore. Those are mostly people from my dad's generation, so I can't say I'm surprised. But the realization that they are so biased they're willing to protect a woman they hate, after she hurt a child, just to make my dad happy has reassured me that I don't need any of them in my life. Stepbrother is still in denial. He refuses to believe his mother could hurt a child, even with all the evidence we have. I have to admit I understand. I love my mom too, but that doesn't mean I'd excuse his obliviousness. So he's banned too. It sucks, because we were close growing up, but I don't regret it. Besides, Jane has 3 other siblings besides Luke, the older Bill, a twin brother and a younger sister, and I'm closer to them than I ever was to him. Speaking of Jane's family, they're all furious over what happened, and have been extremely supportive of us. Jane's maternal family basically adopted Luke after she got custody of him, and have called frequently to make sure he's okay. We did manage to save some money with everybody we uninvited, and have decided to use it to help Jane's cousin. She lives in a different country, and was previously unable to come to the wedding, so we're paying for her plane ticket. Luke has gotten much better, and is almost completely back to being the sunny child he's always been. The split lip was shallow. It's healing slowly, but didn't require any stitches. We sat him down a few days ago, and explained that my dad and stepmonster wouldn't be around anymore. He really liked my dad, but understands that he and SM are attached at the hip. He's clearly scared of her, but we're doing our best to make him feel safe. Me and Jane have reassured him that he is family, we love him, and no one will ever change that. I'm not too worried about Dad or SM trying to show up at the wedding, but we've alerted the venue and given them pictures just in case they try anything. Better safe than sorry. Some people brought attention to the fact that SM is a hypocrite for saying Luke isn't family. I agree, for obvious reasons. Her main excuse for pretty much everything she does is that she doesn't feel like my family welcomes her. Dad has been guilting me to take part in everything she plans by reminding us of that for as long as I can remember. The way he continues to make excuses for her without realizing this is basically a case of the pot calling the kettle black, except Luke actually is family, is what has made me accept that, while I will always love my dad, it's not healthy or safe for me and my family to be around him anymore. It hurts to know my son won't have his only remaining bio-grandfather in his life, but he has 2 amazing step-grandpas to make up for it. For now, I'm sad, but satisfied with how things have turned out. I don't like to complain about my life. It's a mess, but a beautiful one. I love my fiancé, I love my kids, and I'm lucky enough to love my job. We're happy. I'm not letting anyone ruin that. To whoever was annoyed at my censorship. When posting on AITA didn't work out, Jane suggested I make the writing less explicit. I'm not used to Reddit yet, so I might have overdone it a little bit. I hope this is my last update on this story, but I'll keep you posted. Again, thank you for all your love and support. Best wishes to all of you. Relevant comments from OOP. The only reason why I know that this is the first time she's hit him is because this was the first and last time she was with the kids unsupervised. Me and Jane were around every previous time she saw Luke. She didn't want my dad to babysit him, and we'd only asked him to on a few occasions before. My sister was still living with them at the time, and has assured me that Luke was never out of her sight. I know and trust my sister enough to believe her. First time or not, I will not give her a second chance. She'll never hurt either of my kids again. OOP when told to secure passwords with all vendors. We've actually had passwords with the vendors since day one. Some of the earlier ones we met actually recommended us to do it. SM did contact our planner a while back saying she had our approval to talk to our vendors. She didn't let her, and we got a bit more strict with passwords after that. Commenter, so is SM serving any jail time? If she attacked a child then and you guys pressed charges, I would imagine she would have to be processed and eventually serve some time for her crime. OOP, we hope so. We're setting up a date for the arraignment. Commenter, start a file for SM. Keep any and all texts, voicemails and attempts of her communicating. Do the same with anyone who has taken her side because she could escalate, and you may need that info. Those people are flying monkeys and she's sent them to not only plead her case, but report back to her the things you may have told them so she can continue to play her victim card. You were great to have the nanny cam, but should also make sure to notify his daycare or school that she is not to be given info or access to him. Get cameras that have audio just in case she shows up at your house, and password protect all of your wedding vendors and let them know not to give her any info and to notify you if she tries. Your dad may be harmless, but she's not. OOP. That second advice is something we've been pretty occupied with, actually. This past week has been mostly about the kids and collecting evidence, but I'll definitely check out the JN Mill sub. Commenter, did you say that if your father and stepmonster apologize that you will allow them at your wedding? I wasn't quite sure what you were saying. OOP, absolutely not. My father and SM are not welcome at the wedding, no matter the circumstances. They could offer me an island and I'd still refuse to let them come back into our lives right now. I only plan to forgive anything far off in the future, and only if they apologize sincerely. Even then, they will have no access to the kids for years after that. Knowing SM, I highly doubt she'll ever feel sorry for what she did, so we're not counting on it anyway. Update 2. I'll start off by, probably, disappointing a lot of people. We're coming to terms with the fact that it's unlikely SM will get anything more than a slap on the wrist. Me and Jane are discussing our next move with our lawyer, but we're still not sure how we're going to move forward. It's too early to tell anyway, so we're trying not to get ahead of ourselves any more than we already have. However, I'm relieved to announce that we're getting started on the process for a restraining order against SM. We're using the same evidence we gathered the week following the incident, including the nanny cam footage and pictures of Luke, and we'll focus on that for the time being. I still haven't spoken to my father. My sister is still in LC, but is seriously considering cutting ties with him. Because my sister is the only one on my side that still talks to him, my father keeps trying to ask her about me, and whether I've calmed down, yet. According to her, he's annoyed that half of his family refuses to talk to him, but still doesn't seem to accept why. I told my sister that she doesn't need to keep playing messenger pigeon between me and our father. I never asked her to do it, and it's clearly taking a toll on her. But she insists she'll stop when it feels right. By the way, there's absolutely no doubt whether SM attacked Luke. Not only did Luke say at the moment we got home, but that was also confirmed by my father in a failed attempt to defend her behavior. He never tried to hide it from us. That, and the fact that he gave Luke an ice bag, is literally the only positive thing I can say about his actions. And SM was too busy screaming about how much of a whining brat Luke was being to deny it. To those who guessed SM is younger than my dad, you get an invisible cookie. She's also 5 years younger than his previous girlfriend. They got together when I was around 15. Also, my stepbrother is only a month older than me. She turns 50 later this year, had him at 21, married his father a year later. Both our kids are doing mostly okay. Luke's back to running around the house in his Superman costume whenever he doesn't have anything better to do. He did have a few nightmares this past week, and is asked to sleep on our bed twice. We don't mention my father around him, and he's still seeing his counselor. Our 14-month-old son has learned 2 new words, hi and bye, and Luke is trying to teach him to say his name. Jane's sister, who moved away for college, is coming over for a couple days to celebrate her 21st birthday later this month. Luke's excited to see her, and Jane's excited to get drunk with her. Can't say I blame her. We're hoping her presence will cheer us all up. I'm not doing so good, and neither is Jane. She's usually the kind of person who tries to keep her negative emotions to herself, but she cried herself to sleep almost every night the week it happened. It breaks my heart to see her like that, and I can't help but feel like this is my fault. There's a part of me trying to tell myself I had no way of knowing SM would do anything like that, but that doesn't really change anything. I allowed my father near my kids unsupervised, even though I knew she'd probably tag along. This is the guiltiest I've ever felt, and I don't think I'll ever forgive myself. Jane has been improving lately, and is trying to convince me to see a therapist. I've never really done that before, apart from a psychiatrist when I was younger, but now feels like a good time to give it a try. I was surprised by a few messages this week from people telling me to forgive my father and SM, as well as re-invite them to the wedding. That's not happening. In fact, I'm not willing to ever forgive SM. My dad has now degraded to a huge maybe, but I will never understand or forget what she did. Also, though the wedding is the last thing on our minds right now, we're not postponing it. We considered rescheduling, but the date we'd settled on is pretty much the only one that works for our guests. We have passwords with all our vendors, and gave them all clear instructions not to talk to anyone but us. Jane's family is bigger and closer to each other, which is why they're more involved in the wedding than mine, but I do have family participating. My sister is one of the bridesmaids, 2 of my cousins are groomsmen, and my mom is walking down the aisle with the wedding party. Going through all of this with Jane has made me understand even more just how much I love this woman. I couldn't ask for a better partner to start a family with, and I have no idea what I'd do without her. This didn't tear us apart, and I couldn't be more thankful. I probably won't make any more updates until after the wedding, unless something big happens. In the meantime, as always, best wishes to all of you. Update 3. I didn't plan on updating again before the wedding, but something pretty huge happened. The good news is we got the RO. The bad news is me and Jane had to see both SM and my father at the court hearing. This was our first time seeing them since we kicked them out of our house over a month ago, and neither of us were looking forward to it. We left the kids with Jane's brother and Sil, so at least Luke didn't have to see them. The hearing itself went a lot quicker than I expected. I'll give credit where it's due. My father was, at the very least, smart enough to understand there was no way they were winning this. There was a lot of evidence against them. Not only did we have the nanny cam footage and Luke's pictures and medical record, but my sister had also gathered every text and email SM had sent her and the family about what happened. And SM hates speaking on the phone, so there were a lot of those. They didn't even bother to get an attorney for the hearing. The judge granted us a protection order against SM. She's not allowed within 500 feet of us or our property anymore. We're changing all our locks this week, and I'm thinking about changing my phone number as well. I have to admit, the moment we left the courthouse was the safest I'd felt since this whole ordeal started. Jane was close to tearing up with joy when we got to the car. We picked up the kids and went to McDonald's with Bill and his family to celebrate. Hours later, my father called me. The order doesn't extend to him, so he can still do that. Jane and the kids were in bed, so I answered. I didn't expect him to change his mind and apologize all of a sudden, but decided to give him one last chance. He tried to start some awkward small talk, but I told him to get to the point. He asked me if the order was truly necessary. I stated, very clearly, that SM was never coming near Jane or my children again, and that I was glad I had an RO to formalize that. Every excuse he had for SM was pretty easy to shut down, but she only hit him once. Yep, and that's enough for me. The kids need their grandma. She's not their grandma, Mom is. She's my wife. You need to respect her. She attacked Luke, she disrespected my family in my own house. I don't owe her anything, least of all my respect. He then went on a rant about family, how much of a godsend SM was and everything she'd done for me and my sister since she came into our lives. I replied by listing every time I could remember about her lying, overstepping a boundary or acting unhinged around me, my family or my sister. I brought up both my adult life and my youth. Examples included her attempts to hijack most of our milestones, recently, our wedding plans, our son's birth, Jane's baby shower and my sister's college graduation. Her obsession with the idea of a perfect family, and her disgusting attitude towards Luke. I also made sure to mention her habits of going through mine and my sister's stuff when we were younger. It's trivial, compared to everything else, but this behavior went on until my sister moved out of their house, only 3 months ago. We're pretty sure she found out about Jane's wedding dress appointments by reading my sister's planner while she wasn't home, for instance. Some of the memories I mentioned are long and hard to explain, but they did cement the fact that SM means nothing to me. He tried to go with the whole, she doesn't feel included excuse again, but I shut him up. I said he'd had the opportunity to protect his grandchildren, but had chosen his monster of a wife instead, and that's enough for me to want nothing to do with him. I hung up without saying goodbye. My sister told me he called her afterwards, and she told him she was going NC with him as well. I think we're both starting to accept our father won't change. It sucks, but he's made his priorities clear, and his children and grandkids aren't among them. For now, that's it. Now that they're fresh in my mind, I'm thinking about sharing some of the stories I reminded my father of, but that's gonna take a while. Until then, as always, best wishes to all of you. Relevant comments. Commenter, but she only hit him once would have ended the phone call for me. OOP, I almost hung up on him when he said that. The only reason I didn't was because I knew I wasn't gonna talk to him again anytime soon, and I still had a lot to say. Commenter. I am curious how your stepbrother is handling all of this. Like, the RO is something you can't just push away. A judge stated that what his mother did was so terrible she needed to stay away from those children. It just feels like something you can't stick your head in the sand and claim that you could never believe that your mother could hurt someone like that. OOP, I haven't spoken to him since days before the RO, and he hasn't tried to contact me or my sister. He was still in denial last time we talked, but seemed a bit doubtful. TBH, I think he's the only one who isn't a complete lost cause and still has a slight chance of coming around. He's still banned, but I might be willing to talk to him about this whole thing. Commenter. Holy hell. If you are comfortable sharing, I know many of us would want to hear those hijacking stories. Hope the kids don't have too terribly long an impact on their life from this, especially the preschooler. OOP. Luke hasn't mentioned her in a while. I don't doubt he was affected by this, but I think he understands everything is okay now. Our baby is barely a year old. And if it's up to me, he won't even know she exists until he's grown. I'll definitely share some of the stories as soon as I can bring myself to write them down. Commenter. It's crazy how the court gave your dad a chance not to give him the protection order and you gave him a chance to explain on the phone and he still managed to screw up. You guys gave so many chances and your dad fails to see that SM is a bad person. Your dad doesn't seem like he's going to change, and until he does, somehow stop giving him more chances. OP, that was his last chance, and he blew it. If he ever comes around, and that's a big if, it'll still take me a long time to allow him back into our lives. Update 4. After being engaged for over 2 years, me and Jane finally got married last Saturday. We're still getting used to calling each other husband and wife, but we'll get there. Hopefully. The wedding was awesome. The kids had fun, our extended families finally met, and we danced so much I could barely stand the next day. Luke took his ring bearer duties seriously, and held my son's hand as they walked down the aisle. Besides my aunt getting shit-faced and being let out on a wheelchair, which I already thought would happen anyway, everything went according to plan. It's been 4 months since we got the RO against SM. Things have been mostly quiet, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Except completely quiet, but we can't always get what we want. I never really worried about SM showing up at the wedding, especially after the RO. It's literally illegal for her to come close to us, and we made it very clear that if she tried, we'd call the cops right away. My friends still warned me to take safety measures, most of which I did. SM didn't show up, of course, but I'm a strong believer that any money spent on security is well spent, so no regrets on that end. My stepbrother and I wished each other happy birthdays, and he also texted Jane on hers back in June. That's the only contact we've had during these months. He knows that the door is still open if he wants to apologize. My dad has given up on trying to reach me. We haven't spoken since April. He's still trying to talk to my sister, for some reason, but she's ignoring him. A few days after she went NC with him, they had a huge fight over the phone about SM's treatment of us over the years. Insults were thrown, sore subjects were brought up, and, most importantly, my father took SM's side on almost everything. My sister called me crying afterwards. I wanted to call him and yell at him, but she told me not to. She's doing okay now. She hasn't blocked him, but doesn't take his calls or answer his texts. She's only gotten 3, a weak apology, one on my birthday back in May, and a long rant after neither of us wished him a happy Father's Day. After all, despite our differences, he's still our father. He's not wrong. I love my father, and I always will, but I can't be around him anymore. While I've closed that door, I'm not locking it just yet. He knows what he needs to do if he wants his family back. I don't think he'll do it, but if there's the slightest chance he might, I'll consider opening the door an inch or two. This is my wife's suggestion. I'm a lot less optimistic than she is, but maybe it's important to hold on to that hope. She hasn't forgiven him though. Or SM, Jane has always been very protective of Luke, so it was no surprise that this disaster shook her. A part of me was scared she'd blame me, but she called me a dumbass when I told her that. I've been in therapy for a few months and it's helped a lot more than I thought it would. I've realized SM's behavior around me growing up was a lot worse than I always thought, and it's great to finally be able to get my feelings off my chest. Right now, I'm more than happy. I just married the most amazing woman ever, and I have the family I always dreamed of. None of us are perfect, but I never thought life would be this great to me. I'll stick around. Reddit is a lot more than I expected, but I can sleep peacefully now, so it's safe to say this will be my last update on this. Thank you all for the kindness and advice you gave me these months. I could have never expected the support I got from you guys, and I can't begin to describe how helpful it was. Seriously, thank you all. Edit 3 days later. Okay, I updated too soon. I didn't want to write another post, so I'll just add this here. My stepbrother called me earlier today. Apparently, he and SM had a fight and he wants to meet up. I agreed as long as it was just the two of us. We're meeting up for coffee on Wednesday. I have no idea what to expect, but even if he does apologize, I need to know he understands how and why he let us down. New update. Hey guys. I've been away from Reddit for a few months, due to some stuff at work. But a lot of people have been messaging me about my stepbrother, so I want to give you a small update. I've been busy and tired these days, so I might gloss over some details. Feel free to ask me anything. I first met my stepbrother for coffee back in August. He'd had a fight with SM and the RO was brought up. She'd lied to him about some details, accusing Luke of picking on my baby, badmouthing Jane and more, but this time, he managed to force her to tell him the truth. My stepbrother started to reevaluate his relationship with his mother. After talking to his therapist and his friends about it, as well as the way she'd raised him, he finally accepted I wasn't exaggerating about what she did to Luke. He wanted to talk to me back in June, but didn't want to distract me and Jane from the wedding. Me and my stepbrother spent the last 4 months working on rebuilding our relationship. We've been meeting for coffee or lunch and discussing his mother and what she did to our lives and my kids. Jane started joining us in October, and the kids saw him again for the first time 2 weeks ago. Things were awkward between us for a while, but we're good now. He's also making amends with my sister. In early November, he completely cut contact with SM. Jane and the kids are doing amazing. Luke turned 5 in September, and our baby will be 2, holy crap, in early February. We're spending the holidays with Jane's family in Brazil, while my stepbrother stays with his girlfriend. Things are great, that's all. I'm signing off for now. I'll let you know if anything happens. Happy holidays, everyone. Best wishes to all of you. I was discriminated against all my life because of my golden child sister. Finally, I got my sweet revenge on my wedding day. I faced discrimination my entire life because of my golden child sister, and she even tried to walk down the aisle at my wedding. Finally, I got my revenge. My parents always favored my sister and it was far from subtle. If she accused me of something, they'd believe her and punish me. But if I accused her, even with undeniable proof, they'd give her a lighter punishment and find a way to scold me too. My birthday cake always had to be her favorite flavor, and my parents pretend they didn't know I hated it. They always bought her more than me and took us where she wanted, even if it was supposed to be about me. My sister grew up spoiled and used me as a punching bag. At first, she mostly ignored me, but things got worse when we were teens. She ended up with no friends, and her behavior deteriorated. Did her friends move away or ditch her because she was mean? I don't know because we were never close. My parents boasted about her achievements but never mentioned any issues, whereas they constantly highlighted my flaws as teasing material. I only knew she had no friends because we went to the same school, and I noticed she was no longer with people. Meanwhile, I was fairly popular. My sister realized this and suddenly turned me from an occasional punching bag to someone she needed to take down constantly. She started accusing me and my friends of more things. My parents stopped letting me hang out with anyone, with excuses like, "They're not good people according to your sister," or, "Why are you trying to leave us? Why can't you be like your sister and enjoy family time?" What saved me from complete isolation was my extended family. Most of them lived in the same hometown, and I got along well with my cousins despite some age differences. At one gathering, they invited me to something. I don't remember what, and I sadly replied that I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. When asked why, my kid self bluntly said it was because I wasn't allowed to have friends since my sister didn't have any. This got back to the adults, who apparently tore my parents apart later. I was scolded for lying and grounded for a month, but after that, they gave me some leeway, so it was worth it. My sister changed schools. I guess the humiliation of our extended family knowing her social status was too much, so she demanded to switch, and my parents immediately obliged. Even though it cost them more since the school was further away, she made friends at the new school. However, she never went back to mostly ignoring me. Having felt the power to mess with me and being angry that I told the family she had no friends, she never let me go. My life remained difficult. Her friends would come over and bully me, which my parents called light teasing. I never invited friends over because my parents were awful hosts, or my sister would accuse them of stealing, and my parents would believe her. I did become close to my cousins though, as my parents never dared to treat family that way. Then I got my first boyfriend. I didn't want to bring him home, but my parents insisted. At one point we were separated and he came to find me to tell me my sister was flirting with him. She came over in skimpy clothing, batting her eyelashes, and started telling him how bad I was and how good she was. He was irked and ran off to find me. Of course, my sister told my parents a different story, that my boyfriend had tried to flirt with her, but she naturally refused since she couldn't do that to me. Guess who my parents believed? My boyfriend wasn't perfect, but I immediately believed him for a mean reason. Remember, I was a teen suffering from unfair treatment. I was very resentful and moody and hated my sister as much as she hated me. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's talk about looks. I hadn't mentioned them yet because they weren't relevant. My parents were overweight and liked showing love via food, giving more food, buying treats, etc. My sister was also overweight, whereas I was not. I've always been kind of skinny because punishment often included no treats or snacks. Obviously, weight isn't what matters, personality is. But my sister, even then, was already rude and spoiled. Even her flirting attempts were bad because she never learned to work for anything since she could demand, and my parents would deliver. Added to that, the fact that she didn't look like some sexy model, even my self-conscious teen self didn't believe my boyfriend would try and cheat on me with her. Anyway, my parents prohibited me from dating such a horrible boy. I did try to keep going in secret, but it was hard, and the relationship ended. I did get another boyfriend, but again, my sister accused him of flirting with her when he refused her advances. Again, my parents believed her. I tried pointing out how this happened again, but they decided that I was incapable of making good choices and kept picking bad boyfriends. The relationship couldn't handle the Romeo-Juliet situation and fizzled out again. I would eventually get called a slut in high school as I was fine with making out with boys and such but refused to have relationships. Thankfully, it never got back to my sister or parents. My sister did bring one boyfriend home during all this time. He was paraded with pride, and my parents spent every second telling me how good he was and why I couldn't be like my sister and find myself someone like that. Until he stopped showing up and suddenly he was a conniving bastard that tricked my sister. Oh well, and the unequal treatment continued. At this time, she had more spending money, and her curfews were much better than mine. She was free to go anywhere at any time, while I couldn't. If I pointed it out, my parents would say it's because she's older, but when I reached that age, I still didn't have the same treatment she had, and when I pointed it out, they denied they ever said that or claimed it was because I couldn't be trusted like she was, using my sister's accusations against my boyfriends and friends as proof of my bad judgment. Time goes by, and it's time for my sister to graduate. She was accepted into a college, not a very well-regarded one, and she had no scholarship or anything. Again, because only her achievements were told to me, I don't know which colleges she even tried for, so I can't say how badly she was rejected. I do know her grades were bad in school though, because whenever she got a B, we would celebrate. I would usually get good grades, but my parents refused to celebrate, claiming since I always got those, what was there to celebrate? My parents naturally made a lot of fanfare and told her they'd pay for everything. I was relieved she'd be going away. Not that it made my life any easier. She'd always come home every other weekend and somehow stuff kept missing from my room, or some other issue she'd think of to make my life miserable. My curfews were still strict. Eventually, my mom came to talk to me about my impending graduation. I'm only a year younger than my sister. She told me that since they were paying for my sister's college, they had no money to pay for mine, so it would be better for me to start working immediately after graduation and wait until my sister finished university to see if they could afford something for me. Oh, and if I decided to stay at home, I'd have to pay for all my stuff, part of the bills and rent. I pointed out that I could get student loans. Mom said yes, except no, because they were so caring towards me and I had such bad judgment that they would decide if a college was worth my getting into debt or not. I'm not sure how they'd stop me from getting loans, but I didn't ask. Scholarships weren't mentioned. They had no idea what my grades were anymore and never believed in my capabilities anyway. I didn't bat an eyelid. I simply said okay. My mom clearly didn't expect that and kept prying. Maybe she hoped I'd throw a tantrum so they'd have an excuse to never pay for my college. But I said nothing except that I understood their position, thanked them for caring, and that was that. My dad later tried the same, but I also refused to be emotional. You see, after a whole lifetime of their terrible parenting, I never had any expectations towards my education. I knew they would find an excuse to not pay for mine and make my life miserable. I never believed they would eventually pay if I worked and waited for my sister to graduate. I had been preparing for college for a long time. I could barely go out, my friendships were slim, so I had a lot of time to study. And study I did because I saw college as my only chance to be free. Well, the time came, and I worked my ass off and got a scholarship, not to anywhere like Ivy League or anything like law or medical school, but it was a good enough course in a decent college with a full scholarship. Knowing my sister would hate it and try to stop me via my parents, I put my achievement on social media at the same time I told them, even forcing myself to thank them in the post. Now they couldn't forbid me from going as they'd have to explain to the family why not. Initially, they were even a little proud and boasted about it, and then I guess my sister got to them and they changed gears and even asked me if I was sure I wanted to go. They let slip that my sister wasn't doing well in college, and since she was smarter and had better judgment than me, I'd suffer worse. I obviously stuck to my guns. They weren't happy but couldn't do anything. College was my savior. I started being happy. I still contacted my parents and visited on holidays and such, but since they refused to pay for anything, I could excuse not going a lot due to money. During this time, I avoided introducing any man to them, and my sister stopped going to college. I know she didn't graduate because, again, they'd have made a fanfare about it. She moved back home, paying no bills or rent, but it's different, my parents said, and started working at the same company as my mom, obviously thanks to my mom pulling strings. This was all presented to me as a point of pride. Almost there, I promise. I met my husband around this time. You know those people who say, if I were in that situation, I'd have done something. My husband is the type who actually does. I'm the type who is meek and a doormat in any situation and then can't sleep at night wishing I had done something, had thought of something witty to say, etc. I'm the person who can't help but cry when I'm angry. My husband is the guy who claps back immediately. He loves drama and loves to resolve it. He's the guy that if he doesn't immediately reply to a slight, you better start worrying because he won't forgive and forget, he's just doing something worse for revenge. He's the one who wanted me to post here and wanted to post on a nuclear revenge board too, but decided what we did wasn't nuclear. People were baffled that I got together with him, but just because I was incapable of acting like him due to my upbringing, it didn't mean I didn't like it. I love that my husband does what I can't, and he treats people well as long as they do the same to him. When we discussed marriage, we decided we didn't care much about the ceremony due to our budget as we'd rather spend on a dream trip to Europe for our honeymoon. As for where to do it, since his family was spread out and mine was still mostly concentrated in my hometown, we decided to do it there. We weren't living too far off either, so we could take some long trips during the weekends to manage stuff. Plus, there was some work flexibility, so we could stay in my hometown for a bit too if needed. We sent out the engagement announcement and the save the date for a few months later. At this point, my parents naturally demanded to meet my man. I wanted to grow a spine and refuse, but was having a hard time. The distance had made me think maybe my parents weren't so bad. Well, my husband looked like I had canceled Christmas when I told him I would at least ensure they were never alone with him. See, he had been getting ready for this. He even bought a high-quality recorder he could hide in a pocket to record it all. He was stoked thinking of all the ways he could refuse my sister's advances, insult her, and then spread the recording of her attempts to my family. So off he went alone and excited to meet them, and came back later euphoric. Babe, you won't believe the awful things they wanted, babe, we can screw them over so bad. There's so many possibilities. I was confused and wanted to hear the recording, but he smartly told me it was better to listen to him first or else I'd misunderstand him. Well, he went there, and instead of flirting, my parents and my sister sat him down. After some grumbling about not being okay with him, my judgment, etc., they proclaimed they were willing to pay for my wedding on one condition. My sister would walk down the aisle. My parents insisted that my sister would walk down the aisle at my wedding first, in a wedding dress. Their excuse was that it wasn't okay for a younger sister to marry first, so it was only fair if my sister at least had the experience of it, at my venue, with pictures being taken, in the dress, and she'd even have a cake later. My husband will now type his part. Hey, Vengeful husband here. Hell hath no fury like a pro-revenge instant karma nuclear revenge lurker when his beloved is scorned. That said, as much as my wife, she's my wife now, paints me as this quick-witted dude, I admit my neurons all but short-circuited when those folks legit suggested that crap like some sort of great gift. Even Troy would rather take in the horse a second time, methinks. Alas, after my brain rebooted, I did have a whole list of insults ready to spew out, but something in my soul whispered in my ear like the devil, string these idiots along. So I said I needed to think, see how my wife, back then fiancée, would react, and then ran out of there before I could give away my nefarious plans. Back to me, the wife. So my husband sincerely recounted how my parents wanted even my wedding to be about my sister, with a grin on his face and the recording to prove it. I was shocked. The distance had softened how badly they treated me, and I thought even they wouldn't go so far. Thankfully, my husband insisting on the angle of revenge helped me not go to a bad headspace. We had a blast thinking up ways to screw them over, from ridiculously outlandish to what we thought was feasible. We then called his much more level-headed brother when we decided on a plan. It involved having 2 venue addresses, giving them the wrong one, etc. Well, the level-headed brother scolded us for it. While he acknowledged he would never be able to convince us to avoid retaliation, he at least showed us that something like that would be hard to pull off. Some of our other ideas were also at risk of getting us sued, so we eventually settled for the most benign plan. Act like we agreed, but then hire security and don't let her in. Obviously, if that was all, it wouldn't be pro-revenge. The rest is mostly my husband's doing, but he wants me to do the honors. So here goes. Just important to mention, everything he did was previously discussed with me, and they were our mutual ideas. He went back to my parents, said he probed and thought I wouldn't be down with it. However, he didn't see the issue and, not wanting the family to fall apart, would be down to help them do it. He pointed out that I don't like conflict, so if I was surprised with it, I might not throw a tantrum in front of all the people. On the other hand, marriage is a big thing, so who knew if I'd lash out? Thus, he suggested a compromise. They'd help pay for stuff. This way, I would feel even more pressure to not say anything, as not only would we be public with our families there, but I'd be grateful for the help they gave. He said my parents looked shocked, and my grown sister literally started skipping with joy like a kid, so it was accepted. Importantly, my husband also claimed that due to some bad judgment and past boyfriends, these words were all my idea, and I'm so proud of using their words against them. I was distrustful and controlling and liked to check his phone and stuff to ensure he wasn't cheating on me. As such, it was imperative that nothing of this plan was ever put in writing. For any discussion pertaining to my sister walking down the aisle before me, he'd go over to their house to talk. And so began the months of deception where my parents and sister thought they were tricking me, while my husband and I were milking them. Rather than paying for the wedding, they lay low. Of course, my parents wanted input in everything, including some things that meant a lot to me, like the songs and color palette. My husband would convince them to let it go to keep me in line, but since we never really cared for the ceremony to begin with, everything else was fair game, or so they thought. Here's what we did. We'd go to check the drink and menu options and then accept the lowest or second lowest priced option. My husband would then secretly take my sister there to try it out and then sigh and say, "It's a pity we don't want to abuse my parents' goodwill, so we won't get the best options." Cue my sister demanding my parents pay for the best. My parents would then tell me not to worry and they'd pay for the most expensive option. The same was done with the photographer and flowers. My husband handed my sister a bouquet of the flowers we wanted and then sadly expressed how I wanted some other tasteless flowers. Cue my parents telling me they wanted us to go with said flowers and they'd pay for it. When it came to the wedding dress, we hit a minor snag. My parents wanted me to use a hideous dress. Okay, it wasn't outright hideous, but it wasn't my style and wouldn't look good on me. We had planned on saying yes and then simply not using it, but my mom sent me a message about it, so there'd be proof I said okay. We had to go with me refusing to text and standing my ground. My husband went over there and said he'd see what he could do. My sister suggested ruining my desired dress so I'd be forced to wear the other one. He pretended to agree. During all this time, they kept communications outside any text. We made sure that happened by having me reply to my sister when she tried messaging my husband. This solidified the uncontrolling and neurotic claims my husband was making, so they believed it and never risked anything in writing. Some people might not like the thought of their partner going around and talking badly about them to family, but I'm such a doormat that the thought of being painted as this controlling and dangerous person is extremely funny to me, and I egged him on to do it. I guess I have a warped sense of humor. Oh, and my sister did try to flirt with him, but he acted conflicted to really sell that he was with them. My husband would pretend to tell them things without my knowledge, but he never told them we hired security. It was really funny. My husband and I, who had sincerely considered a courthouse wedding to focus costs on our honeymoon, ended up having this extravagant, expensive wedding and barely spent a dime. We called it back to pay for emotional damages from my parents. I think my husband, okay, he just confirmed I'm right, was enjoying the whole trick more than planning our wedding. I didn't think it was possible to witness a guy beaming at the thought of wasting his whole Saturday doing a car trip to discuss wedding details with his in-laws, but here we are. Soon the day came. The plan my parents, sister and husband had come up with was to wait until everyone was seated since the bride always comes out late. They'd have my sister arrive at that precise time to avoid me seeing her and trying to stop it, and she'd walk down the aisle. By the time I heard what happened, it would be too late to do anything. As for my dress, we saved some of the leftover fabric from my dress alterations. My husband took that to my parents' place, my sister still lives with them, and showed them as proof he'd ruined the dress, then said he had to go back to me as I was raging and he needed to calm me down. He told them he'd see them at the wedding. We made sure to keep our real security hidden initially. As the guests and my parents arrived, they only saw a woman with a list of names to check. Only after my parents had settled in did we bring out the actual security, a guy who looked like a bodyguard. We instructed him not to let my sister in and promised a generous tip if he kept our instructions confidential. Soon, the moment arrived. My parents got a text that my sister was less than 5 minutes away, so my dad signaled for the ceremony to start. My bridesmaids had been prepped to follow his lead, so they did without checking with me. After they all took their places, my dad stood at the entrance, waiting for me. During this, a friend not in the wedding party texted me to get ready, to avoid suspicion if my husband or bridesmaids started texting. This friend, my husband's ally, was as eager to stir drama as he was and didn't mind not being a bridesmaid. As soon as my dad took his position, the bridal song began. The doors opened and I entered. My dad was shocked to see me. He tried to look behind me but couldn't see the venue entrance from where we were, so he had no idea what had happened to my sister. Then his phone rang. I saw the caller ID, and it was her. He left me with a mumbled, "Something came up." Gasps and confusion filled the room. The friend on the plan loudly asked what happened. I lied and said tearfully, "He told me it wasn't supposed to be me there." My husband and I had agreed that if my dad abandoned me, I should say that to make him look as bad as possible. The tears weren't just acting. I was genuinely hurt and trying not to cry. The friend then loudly asked, "What did he mean by it shouldn't be you?" So that everyone could hear and spread it. Then she said, "I will go and check," and ran off. We planned this so she could create chaos with the security and prevent my dad from returning to stop the ceremony. Eventually, my mom also left. At this point, my husband's dad quickly ran over and took my arm. He'd been forewarned he might need to. His desperate run to me made me smile. I walked down the aisle to whispers as people discussed what had happened. Some left to check as well. When I reached my husband, all was well. He comforted me, joking that my sad face was so real I deserved an Oscar and reassured me he'd deal with my parents for what they did. We got married without any further issues. My parents didn't come back. I noticed a lot of people leaving and returning during the party, but no one dared tell me what was happening. Someone whispered in my husband's ear and he went out. He returned later with a thunderous expression but whispered to me that he needed to go hide before he broke character and started smiling. It worked. Here's the summary from friends, family, the security guy and my husband that I got afterwards. My sister arrived in a wedding dress. The security refused to let her in as we had agreed. He told her she must be at the wrong venue because there was already a bride. Yes, we tipped him very well as promised. My dad tried threatening him with the police, claiming he'd never heard of him, so he couldn't be working there. The security agreed to call the police since he was hired by us and was just doing his job. My dad realized it would be too late and tried to demand that he let my sister in. At this point, the friend came over, started shouting and insulting my sister, and asking what was going on, basically stalling. My mom soon arrived, followed by others. By then, the wedding plan was ruined. All my parents could do now was damage control, as everyone who learned about it was horrified they'd try to pull it off. People started screaming and berating them. The three naturally said it wasn't a secret and blamed my husband. When he was called over, my husband put on his best confused look and denied everything. To quote him, "Gaslight, gatekeeper, girl boss, LOL." He denied ever agreeing to such a ridiculous plan. When they insisted he demanded proof, and of course, they couldn't provide any. All the text exchanges they could show were about normal wedding decisions. My sister was crying and apparently sat on the floor kicking her legs like a child. My dad looked like he wanted to hit my husband, but security and other people held him back. Naturally, they claimed they had no proof because my husband told them not to text. My husband laughed and said, "Wow, how convenient, huh?" Then he repeated, "Why would I ever agree to something so messed up?" He ripped into them about being terrible parents and said he wasn't going to let their stupid plans and lies ruin his wedding, then went back to me. No one believed them. The venue had cameras, but they wouldn't show me the recording as it was only for security purposes. However, some people filmed parts of it. Watching my parents and sister get torn apart by everyone who came out to see the drama was delightful. After years of being accused of things and not being believed, seeing them get a taste of their own medicine was one of the best wedding gifts. My mother was crying, my dad kept changing from purple to white, and my sister was still on the floor crying and screaming. They kept insisting that my husband was in on it, but people kept asking why he would agree, why there was no proof, and why they wanted my sister to do this at my wedding. They had no good answers. Eventually, they were told to leave and had no choice but to do so. My dad apparently had to drag my sister up as she refused to leave the ground. Again, people said nothing to me all night. I guess they wanted to spare me, and maybe it's because I was the bride and not just a guest for once, but it did feel like everyone was making an extra effort to be nice, positive, and excited about everything. My husband says all the expensive food and drinks they were eating certainly helped, lol. We had a blast. My husband kept up the forced angry face for only a short while before breaking out in smiles again. After that, we went to the hotel to catch some sleep before heading off on our honeymoon. Speaking of which, my parents did try to pay for our plane tickets, but we thought that was risky as they could try to cancel them or something, so we refused. Since then the three of them have tried to contact me. I've refused calls because my husband insisted on keeping a paper trail, a smart move because my sister eventually messaged me. I won't repeat what she said as it was very unhinged and didn't make much sense, but the important part was that she blamed me for her humiliation. Called my husband a two-faced snake who fooled them for months, he wants to print and hang that on our wall, lol, and hoped, but was also certain, that I'd get cheated on by him. She even suggested he was cheating on me with her. My husband took my phone, screenshot the call logs, my sister's messages and some messages from my parents demanding I pick up the phone, and sent it all to our family group chat. He also sent screenshots of messages to him where they called him names and threatened him, but he kept up the "you're delusional, I never agreed to anything" shtick and even threatened to sue them for defamation and harassment. He wrote a message in the group chat begging my family for help as I was now being harassed by them constantly. He pleaded with them to stop my parents and sister from ruining our honeymoon after they failed to ruin our wedding. He ended with a request that they not share our locations to prevent my parents from sending my sister over and claiming he had somehow agreed to pretend to sleep with her in our honeymoon suite, lol. My family assured him they'd handle it, and since then, we've had peace. My husband is a bit disappointed that my sister didn't disobey so he could call her out again while tearing her a new one. We'll see if the peace lasts. All in all, while I would have preferred a normal, loving family at my wedding, at least for once in my life they not only failed to ruin something meaningful to me, but I got back at them. Extra info: do I know why they treat me like this? I've been asked this question a lot, so I assume you all will wonder the same. I've pondered this all my life and still don't know. I tried asking when I was young, but they denied any difference and scolded me for being spoiled, so I stopped trying. I've considered many possibilities, but based on my observations I think it's this. I was unplanned. They took a while to have my sister, so she was not only wanted but also like a miracle child after so long. However, given our small age difference, I think they didn't expect to have another child so soon or easily and didn't use adequate protection after my sister's birth. Maybe they didn't realize my mom was pregnant until it was too late, so they were saddled with an unplanned baby while still dealing with a newborn. They're not well off, so having the extra expense likely didn't help, and they resented me. But that's just my conjecture. Regardless, I've accepted that the reason won't truly matter. What they did to me was unwarranted, no matter what. Did they really think this would work? My husband and I have a theory that they never intended to do this at all. We think my sister threw a tantrum over me getting married first when she barely gets dates, and they made my husband that outlandish proposition. They didn't want to pay for my wedding and didn't think we'd accept or that it would even look good for them to do it. By suggesting it and being refused, they could look like the good guys to my sister while having an excuse not to give me a dime. But then my husband accepted it and they couldn't backtrack without risking my sister turning on them. Parents secretly charged $115K on my credit card for my sister's Europe trip, so I reported it as fraud, leading to major family fallout. Though I never imagined I would be producing an article like this, here I am still in shock and bewilderment over what my parents have done. Alex, 28. Has a younger sister, Emma, 22F, who recently graduated from college. Although our parents have always been, let's say, fascinating in their style of raising their children, this most recent act infuriates me. For background, I have always been the family's responsible one. After working hard in school, I applied for scholarships, and straight out of college earned a decent position in finance. Since I was 22, I have been financially independent. I am glad of what I have done. Emma, on the other hand, has always been the family's young darling. I love my sister, so don't get me wrong. Yet our parents have clearly pampered her. Emma was always obviously the favorite growing up. She was never forced to work a part-time job or help with housework. She acquired the newest appliances and outfits. Focusing on my own objectives and future, I tried not to let it disturb me too much. Nevertheless, occasionally the partiality was difficult to overlook. One specific event came to me when Emma was 10 and I was 16. Months of saving had gone into a new gaming system purchase. Excitedly telling my parents I was heading to the store to buy it, the day I at last had enough money. They answered shockingly, "Oh, we already got one for Emma last week, you are welcome to share hers." Though I was heartbroken, I tried to be happy for my sister and stashed my disappointment. Still, forward swiftly toward the present. Emma recently finished with a degree in communications. She worked hard and deserves to celebrate her accomplishment, hence I am actually proud of her. I also gave her a beautiful graduation present, a new laptop she had been coveting. I heard from my mother last week. She was bursting with enthusiasm, sharing with me Emma's ideal graduation present, a month-long trip throughout Europe. Thinking Emma's gift from our parents was a kind one, I was pleased for her. The shocking revelation then came. "We used your credit card to book it all," my mother remarked dismissively, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "We needed the points from your card to upgrade some of the flights and hotels, thus we will pay you back, naturally." I had no words. What I was hearing defied belief. When I finally recovered my voice, I inquired about their expenditure. The response made me feel as though I had been pummeled in the gut. $155,000. $155,000 on my credit card without authorization or knowledge. Trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom," I continued, "you cannot just use my credit card without asking me. That's illegal. $155,000 is a lot of money." She discounts my worries. "Oh, Alex, be not too theatrical. It relates to the graduation of your sister. Family looks out for one another. Beyond that, we're good for it. Eventually we will pay you back." Finally. Even then, what did that mean? And because $155,000 is just casual about when. My mother wasn't hearing it when I attempted to explain to her why this was such a big deal. The effect on my credit score, the fact that I might need the credit limit for emergencies, the pure betrayal of trust. "You have always been so selfish," she remarked, her voice going icy. "Could you simply be glad for your sister? This is her big moment. Your penny-pinching habits are trying to destroy it." What I was hearing defied belief. For complaining about an illegal $155,000 transaction on my credit card, I was seen as selfish. I hung up the call feeling a mixture of hurt, wrath, and incredulity. I tried to talk to my dad over the next few days, expecting he would be more reasonable, but he confirmed what my mother had said, that I was exaggerating? And I should encourage my sister more. Emma, for her part, appeared completely blind to the circumstances. She simply gushed about how thrilled she was about the trip and thanked me for helping her to graduate. When I tried to discuss it with her, I thought I was insane. Was I indeed the irrational one present? To contest the charges, I decided to phone the credit card company. However, to my astonishment, I found that my parents had booked everything online using my card details, which they had in case of an emergency. The credit card company said that it wasn't deemed fraud as I had provided them with my details. I now have a $115,000 debt, a maxed-out credit card, and a family who believes I'm being self-serving for not wanting to pay for my sister's expensive trip. The individuals who are meant to love and encourage me have betrayed me, hurt and angered me. What to do eludes me. Though I know that would cause great family strife, part of me wants to call off the entire vacation. Another side of me wants to simply pay it off to save the drama, but $115,000 is a lot of money and the idea of the thing truly disturbs me. Furthermore, allowing this fall could set a standard for more financial mistreatment going forward. Is my reaction too strong? Should I just swallow it and pay for my sister's vacation, or should I stick to it even if it means maybe souring ties with my family? I could really use some guidance. I feel lost. Update 1. I appreciate all of your advice and encouraging words. The sheer reaction to my post really startled me. Reviewing your responses helped me to see that my anger over this scenario was not insane. I felt violated. Considering your counsel, I decided to proceed. I first escalated the problem by phoning my credit card provider once more. I detailed the circumstances, stressing that although my parents had my card information for an emergency, I had never approved this particular use. Following some back off, they decided to look at the charges as possible fraud. I then asked for a family Zoom call to go over the matter and texted Emma and my parents groupwise. Before acting more forcefully, I wanted to let them have an opportunity to write this. The call was, at least mildly intense. I began gently outlining why their acts were unacceptable, the legal ramifications, the mistrust, and the financial burden it placed on me. I informed them they had to immediately cancel the vacation since I had reported the charges as fraudulent. The response of my parents did not reflect what I had hoped. They were outraged, accusing me of being dramatic and seeking to spoil Emma's graduation party. My mother went so far as to add, "We raised you, clothed you, and covered your head with a roof. The least you could do is assist your sister in having a lifetime of travel." I inhaled deeply and answered, "You decided to have children. Your obligation as parents was to support us. It does not mean you are free to use credit cards under my identity." Emma, who had been calm up until now, started crying. She wailed, "I can't believe you're trying to ruin my graduation gift. You have always harbors envy of me. Why can't you simply be glad for me once?" Her comments stung, but they also sharpened my will. I knew this pattern of entitlement and favoritism ran deep, and it was time to create some clear limits. "Emma," I continued, trying to keep my voice soft but strong, "I'm glad for you and I'm proud of your graduation. But this vacation was booked illegally with money taken without permission. It's not okay and it's not a gift from me." At last, my normally quiet dad spoke up. "Son, we didn't think it was such a big deal. For crises, we have always had access to your card. As a family, we simply reasoned that this one occasion would be acceptable." What I was hearing defied belief. "Dad, this was not an emergency and $155,000 is not a small sum. You cannot only choose to spend my money without consulting me." Emma was crying, my parents were furious, and I felt exhausted but determined when the call finished. Insisting that I was overreacting and that they would reimburse me shortly, they refused to call off the trip. Following the conference, I moved forward. I told a buddy of mine, a lawyer, the circumstances. He cautioned me that, should I decide to take legal action, what my parents did was in fact illegal and grounds for legal action exist. I also reported the illegal credit card use by going to the police station. The officer I spoke with took down all the specifics and was sympathetic. He advised me that although following charges would probably cause a significant divide in my family, I was quite within my rights to do so. About what to do going forward, I'm still divided. I adore my family, on one hand, yet I get nauseous thinking about suing them. Conversely, their behavior is inappropriate, hence if I do not act strongly right now, this kind of behavior may resurface in the future. I have chosen to wait and see for now what results from the credit card company's inquiry. To stop any more illegal usage of my information, I also froze my credit. This whole scenario has let me know I had to set more rigid rules for my family. Though I've always attempted to be the peacekeeper, that is, to straighten things out and maintain everyone's happiness, I have let myself be repeatedly exploited in doing so. Though I'm hurt and outraged, I also feel an odd sort of empowerment. I'm standing up for myself and saying no, this is unacceptable, for the first time. Though unpleasant and frightening, it also seems vital. Again, thanks all for your support and guidance. Once I have more updates on the credit card inquiry or if anything else comes of course with my family, I will update once more. Update 2. My previous update was several weeks ago and a lot has transpired. I wish to thank them once more for their help and guidance. Your remarks have been a lighthouse through this trying period. First, the good news. My credit card company's inquiry came back positive. They reversed the charges since they agreed they were illegal. Having that $115,000 weight off of my shoulders relieves a great deal. Now let's consider familial fallout. All hell exploded when my parents and Emma discovered the credit card dispute had caused the trip to be cancelled. Furious calls and texts swamped my phone. Saying I had destroyed Emma's life, my mother left an especially angry message labeling me a selfish, unappreciative son. Emma went to social media and shared a moving video about how her spiteful brother had ruined her dream graduation trip. A few of our shared friends and relatives began contacting me to find out why I was treating my younger sister so badly. The matter was spiraling out of control, and I knew I had to straighten the record. I posted a calm, objective piece outlining what had actually happened. How my card had been used without my consent and how I had tried to mend things with my family prior to acting with the credit card company. The reaction to my post was uneven. Some were encouraging, expressing dismay at the behavior of my parents. Others felt I ought to have just taken one for the team and let Emma travel. Finding out how many others felt it acceptable to conduct fraud as long as it was for the family opened eyes. A few days following my post, my mother's sister called me unexpectedly. She offered some family history I hadn't learned before and showed understanding of my circumstances. My mother apparently had a history of financial irresponsibility and has past taken advantage of family members. My aunt gave me her support and urged me to be firm. Talking with my aunt helped me to see that the problem went beyond one occurrence. Years of enabled and excused behavior have set a habit of behavior. I understood then that I had to keep strict limits not only for my own benefit but also to stop the cycle of financial mistreatment. I made the decision to go really big. For the foreseeable future, I informed my parents I would be not interacting with them at all. I said I couldn't trust them right now and I needed time to sort through what had happened. Emma also heard me say that although I loved her and felt good about her accomplishments, I wanted some distance from her too. Their responses were almost always unfavorable. My parents charged me with severing the family. Emma sobbed and stated I was punishing her for something outside her control. Though difficult, I stayed to be sure of my choice. Amid all this family turmoil, I have been especially focused on shielding myself against potential financial mistreatment. I replaced all of my passwords, closed the credit card my parents had access to, and opened a fresh one at another bank. To work through my emotions about the circumstances and create better limits, I have also begun visiting a therapist. One unanticipated benefit of this whole process is that it has brought me closer to a few relatives and my aunt, who contacted me to provide encouragement. Knowing that not every member of my family finds what my parents did acceptable is good. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, I learned via the family grapevine that her parents are still considering sending her someplace. Though I keep reminding myself that it wasn't my obligation to offer that for her, part of me feels bad about her missing the Europe vacation. I still find myself battling doubt and remorse. Sometimes I worry whether I did the right thing or too hard, but then I remember the violation I felt when I found out what they had done and I know I made the correct decision in speaking out for myself. Though it's a painful wake-up call, this event has also been a valuable lesson in self-respect and establishing limitations. I'm finding that love shouldn't have a price tag and that saying no, even to family, is okay. Again, I appreciate your support. For now, I'm concentrating on mending and moving forward. I will post should there be any noteworthy changes. Update 3. My last update was almost 2 months ago, hence I wanted to let you all know some advancements. Over this trying period, your ongoing support and guidance has been priceless. Let us start with the most urgent matter, the legal one. Following much thought and legal advice, I opted against charging my parents. This wasn't a simple choice, and I know many of you suggested I file a lawsuit. My attorney noted though, that since the credit card company had reversed the charges, going for a criminal prosecution would be difficult and maybe expensive without any assurance of victory. Rather, we have formally written my parents a cease and desist letter telling them that any future use of my financial data will cause instant legal action. Now, on the family matter. The no-contact period with Emma and my parents has been instructive and difficult at once. It allows me time to consider our family dynamics and concentrate on myself. Having regularly attended therapy, which has been quite beneficial in helping me to process my emotions and create better limits, about 1 month into the no-contact period, Emma sent me an uninvited email. Unlike her earlier crying claims, this email was refreshingly adult. She said she had given it much thought and came to see how mistaken our parents' behavior was. She felt bad about her first response and about not defending me. Emma said she had always known about the favoritism but had been too comfortable and afraid to question it. Though I was cautiously hopeful by Emma's email, I decided to go gently. Since then, we have had a few phone calls. From what I can see, she is actually attempting to grasp my viewpoint. She had earlier kept to herself some of her own experiences with our parents' financial carelessness. The aborted Europe trip seemed to be a wake-up call for her as well. Regarding my parents, they have been less ready to take accountability. From guilt-tripping emails to enraged voicemails, they have tried multiple times to reach me. One day, my mother even showed up at my apartment without warning, creating quite a disturbance in the corridor. Though it was tough, I stayed my ground and avoided interacting. The extended family dynamics have been conflicted. Some families have been encouraging, especially my aunt who first got in touch. She is now a great friend and ally. Others, using the "but their family" justification, nevertheless encourage me to reconcile with my parents. For my own mental peace, I have had to cut ties to some of these cousins. Positively, nonetheless, this circumstances has resulted in some unanticipated personal development. Spending the time and effort I used to manage the drama in my family has helped me to concentrate more on my own life and aspirations. I have started a new pastime, photography, and have been spending more time with pals that honor my limits. I have also made some really important financial choices. I started establishing a stronger emergency fund and have been more generous to my retirement funds. The value of financial freedom and stability has been really emphasized by this whole experience. Last week brought one especially fulfilling event. At work, I got a promotion accompanied by a significant wage raise. I might have felt obliged in the past to tell my family this news and the money gained. This time I celebrated privately with a small group of close friends, glad of my achievements free from guilt or obligation to share. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, my aunt told me our parents ultimately sent her on a 2-week California tour. Emma apparently had fun with it. Looking ahead, I'm somewhat hopeful but yet wary. I have chosen to keep my parents under no contact for at least 3 more months. I need more time to recover and evaluate whether they can honor my limits. Emma allows me to gently restore our friendship, but I'm moving carefully and keeping clear limits. This encounter has really helped me to learn about the real meaning of family, standing up for myself, and establishing limits. Family, I've come to see, is about love, respect, and support as much as blood ties. The friends and relatives who have supported me during this struggle have shown me what actual family entails. About financial freedom, I have also gained a useful insight. Although I have always been frugal with money, this scenario has made me especially more alert. On all of my accounts, I have added extra security measures. I have also become more aggressive in safeguarding my financial data, even from relatives. Particularly during family gatherings I missed because of the no-contact policy, there have been times of uncertainty and grief. Mother's Day proved especially challenging, but I remind myself that my mental health and personal development depend on this distance. One unanticipated result of this is that I have started to be really helpful to friends handling personal family financial problems. Many people have come to me seeking guidance on establishing limits and handling financially reckless family members. Being able to guide others through the same circumstances makes one feel wonderful. Regarding my parents' financial circumstances, my aunt has told me they are having trouble. Apparently, they had been depending on my credit for purposes beyond Emma's vacation. This has caused some conflict between them since my dad holds my mom responsible for pushing too far with the credit card theft. Though part of me feels bad knowing they are facing money problems, I tell myself that their bad financial choices are not my duty to correct. Emma has offered some observations on how our parents responded to all of this. She adds they still don't really know why I responded so passionately. They can't understand why I'm making such a big deal out of it. They view their activities as natural family behavior. This ignorance irritates me, but it also helps me to realize that I made the correct choice in separating myself. After much thought on my early years and early adulthood, I came to see trends of financial and emotional control I had accepted. Though it's been a difficult journey, it also releases something. I'm learning to validate my own emotions and experiences apart from parental approval. Regarding my personal life, I have lately started dating once more. Dealing with all this familial drama, I had been reluctant to interact with anyone. But lately I came across someone who has been rather sympathetic about my circumstances. Though early days, it feels fantastic to be developing a relationship with someone who upholds my values and limits. I'm also thinking about drastically altering my life. Though I have always wanted a master's degree, I put it off somewhat because of worries about how it would affect my capacity to support my family financially. I'm now really researching programs and thinking about diving in. Making decisions grounded just on what's best for my future and me feels empowering. I find as I draft this update how much has changed in a few months. The first shock and resentment had subsided to be replaced by a cool determination. I'm actively building the life I want for myself, not only responding to the behavior of my family. To those of you perhaps handling such familial problems, I want to say it gets better. Although setting limits is difficult, and there can be reactions, keep firm. Your rights include those to guard your mental health, money, and personal belongings. Again, I appreciate all of your support on this trip. Your guidance and support have been a lifesaver. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for my connection with my sister and parents, I know I will be fine whatever comes of it. Right now I'm stronger, more certain of myself, and ready to meet whatever lies ahead. If there are any major changes, I will notify once more. For now, I am focused on forward-looking and creating the life I want surrounded by supportive people. Here's wisdom earned and fresh starts. Update 4. My last update was 6 months ago, and I felt it was time to let all of you, who have been so encouraging over this path, know the most recent developments. First, the most news. I have been accepted into a master's program in a city 3 hours from where I presently live. This 2-year financial technology program fits very nicely with my professional objectives. Starting this fall, I am equal in excitement and anxiety about this new phase of my life. Choosing to work for this degree was not simple. It involves quitting my career, relocating to a new place and starting some student debt, but it also means making investments in my future, in the manner I have always wanted. I came to see that I had been holding back, constantly weighing how my choices might affect my family. It seems quite freeing to now be choosing based on what would be best for me. Regarding my family, things have changed in ways I never would have predicted. 2 months ago, the no-contact period with my parents formally came to an end. I agreed to a family therapy session run under the direction of a professional therapist. It was quite strong. Defensively still believing they had done nothing wrong, my parents arrived, but as the session went on, some shockingly real facts emerged. My dad had hidden from everyone, including my mom, a large loss of money from a poor investment. For months they had been covertly struggling financially, and they looked to my credit card to keep appearances. Many tears and accusations followed from this insight. My dad felt guilty of his bad financial choices, my mom felt deceived by his silence, and both of them at once seemed to realize the weight of what they had done to me. Although this justification does not absolve their behavior, it did enable me to see the desperation driving their bad decisions. The therapist guided us through some of these problems, and for the first time both of my parents sincerely apologized. Monthly family therapy sessions are going to continue under our agreement. Though I'm still keeping strict limits and it's a gradual process, I feel cautiously hopeful about reconstructing our connection on better terms. Emma has kept developing and maturing. She moved into her own apartment and started working full-time in order to reach financial independence. Our conversations have become more frequent, and I feel as though I am first starting to know my sister as an adult. She has even sought guidance on saving and budgeting, which is a major advancement in our relationship. Personal-wise, the relationship I highlighted in my last update has evolved into something unique. Though it means we will be doing long distance for a period, Sarah has been quite encouraging of my choice to return to school. Her own experiences with establishing limits with family have made her a great source of insight and encouragement. Financially, I am in good shape. Thanks to the encouragement I got, I was able to somewhat offset the expenses of graduate school and save a sizable sum for my move. I have also started to defend my financial data far more aggressively. I recently had to turn down an attempt by a distant relative to guilt me into co-signing a loan. Though it wasn't easy, I stood my ground and felt good about imposing limits. I've been thinking about how much has changed since that first startling phone call from my mother concerning the credit card charges as I get ready for this next phase of my life. The hurt and resentment I had then have mostly disappeared. Instead, I now feel empowerment and self-assurance I never realized I had. This process has taught me so much. Even, and especially, with family, I now see the value of establishing and upholding limits. True family, whether related by blood or by choice, promotes your development and respects your boundaries. I have come to see that it is okay to give my own well-being and future top priority. Thank you to everyone who has tracked my narrative and provided encouragement and guidance along the road. During some quite trying circumstances, your words have been a lighthouse of strength and clarity. To anyone who might be experiencing similar family conflicts, know that it is possible to emerge on the other side wiser and stronger. I am excited and full of possibilities as I pack my flat and get ready for this new journey, not something I have felt in years. I'm glad of how far I have gone, and I am excited about what the future presents. I'll be busy with my move and starting school, hence I might not update again for some time. Nonetheless, I will always be appreciative of the help I have gotten here. Here are fresh starts, acquired knowledge, and the bravery to design the life we wish for personally.